Hey, Big Daddy, how you doing?
Real good. In fact, I would even say dandy.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much, Corey LaJoy. Welcome in. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the Rob Brown Show. It is the Fan Upstate.
You stay classy.
Always. Great to have you, people. Welcome in. Hope that your week is going well. Still resting, recovering, recuperating from a long and extended weekend. Alas, there is sports to discuss, to debate, and to squabble over. So let the discussion, the debating, and the squabbling begin. I am Rob Brown. The pleasure is mine, but not exclusively, because on the other side of the metaphorical glass this morning, the gentleman in charge of this and every radio program everywhere that you have ever enjoyed, the great one Lonzo, is in the building as well. 4 hours of chaos and shenanigans underway as of this exact moment.
Lonzo is a superstar.
Yep, he is. Just ask him. He'll let you know. Let you know all about it.
That cut disappeared, so I had to find it again.
I'm glad you got it back.
It's just like mysteriously keeps disappearing off my cart wall. I don't know how that happens.
It's the mysterious them. It's the they. The they are out to get you, man.
I suspect it may be someone wearing a flowering shirt. Possibly did it.
First off, I picked this up yesterday, $16. Kind of love it. Feeling very festive today.
Looks silky.
Yeah, it's an athletic style golf shirt, which apparently it's not going to be hot today. So we're gonna look. Sometimes
we're gonna find out if it's cold in this room.
Sometimes
that's what we're gonna find out.
Sometimes you have to sacrifice a little bit. Sometimes you got to sacrifice in the name of fashion and being style forward, which of course I obviously am. I know. Plenty we got to talk about, plenty we got to get to today on the radio program, so I hope that you will join us. The NBA and NHL playoffs underway last night. The Indiana Pacers get a dub over the New York Knickerbockers. Tyrese Halliburton, very good at basketball, but somebody, in fact, friend of the show, Joey B, sent me a clip of Tyrese Halliburton yesterday and said Tyrese plays basketball with the same vibes as Steve Urkel did in that episode where he balled out for his local high school, and they had a side-by-side of it, and it's absolutely hilarious. It's absolutely hysterical. But
are you and Joe disparaging Urkel?
Not in the least.
Because that's what it sounds like.
Not in the least. Because Urkel was like the first. I can't say first because I'm sure that there were other shows before the classic TGIF lineup that featured Family Matters back in the day. But of my, let's say, television watching and also understanding phase, I would say that Jaleel White, a.k.a. Steve Urkel, was probably the first dude to become a nerd and also like the star of the show. Urkel was meant to be a one-episode throwaway character. He was actually just supposed to be kind of like a background character, a featured like very rarely, always kind of a storyline bounce-off guy, whatever. But he ended up being so popular with the audience right out of the gate that they ended up keeping him as a primary focus of the show, ultimately obviously becoming the primary focus of the show. And I think that's awesome. But he was like the first guy, I think, that kind of made being a nerd, you get, okay, I can be the star, man. I can be the star. So no disparagement of Jaleel White, of Steve Urkel, or of Tyrese Halliburton, of which I am a fan of all of them. But Tyrese, Like he does not play specifically on the offensive side of the basketball. He does not play basketball like with the same body control of that traditional prototypical NBA star. Remember, this is the cat that a couple of weeks ago, The Athletic put out a player survey where Tyrese Halliburton was labeled as the most overrated player in the National Basketball Association. And very clearly, my dude Tyrese took that personally because these playoffs have been the Tyrese Halliburton show. Last night, Tyrese comes down with the triple-double and looked damn good do it. 31 points, 15 assists, and a dozen boards en route to the dub. But the dude has just been, I don't know how else to say it. And my job is to be more eloquent than this. The dude's just fun to watch. Like he doesn't play recklessly, but he doesn't play with that same kind of smooth finesse style of ball that we think about when we talk about Anthony Edwards, that we think about when we talk about some of the great Jalen Brunson, some of the great scorers and assist guys in the league. He's very unorthodox in the way that he plays, the way that he handles the ball, the way that he attacks offenses. Like it's just not, I don't know how else to put it. It's just not traditional. And for whatever reason, not only does it work, but it works well. And the Pacers have taken advantage. I was on BetMGM last night. I'm on that show every Tuesday at 8:20. And I was talking about this game with Ryan Horvat, and PJ Glasser was in for Brad Evans last night. And we were talking about this game, and they said, all right, who do you have? Do you have a cover? Do you have a money line win? Whatever. I said, I actually really like a Pacers money line win here, but I wouldn't be against the cover bet. I think it was like 4.5 or something like that at the crib for Indy. And I said that the takeaway for me is Indiana wins this game if they have possessions, if they have a higher number of possessions, right? Like, and that's kind of the thing is you're talking about a New York Knicks defense that has been top 5 in the league all year long, a New York Knicks defense that is thrived on minimizing your possessions per game. They want to keep you down around 90, 92 possessions a game. And the Pacers offense is the exact opposite. The Pacers offense this year has thrived on having, 102 to 110 possessions per game, picking up the pace, making it faster. Well, halftime came and went of this game. And I was watching the TNT halftime show, and they went to the sideline, and Reggie and Van Gundy were down there, and they said that game was, I think, the fourth highest paced game in terms of number of possessions, the fourth highest paced first half of a game in these entire NBA playoffs. 1, 2, and 3, highest paced first halves in games. All Pacers games, all Pacers wins. If the Pacers can make you play a game that has a historic pace to it, they win the game. The Pacers are the opposite of the Lakers and the Jazz in that they are a very appropriately named basketball team. There's no Lakes in LA. There's no Jazz in Utah. Their bad names, change them. I hate them. The Pacers play with pace. They play fast. They get up and down the floor. They want to create more possessions. They want to have shots up earlier in the shot clock, high percentage shots earlier in the shot clock. They want to make you collapse your defense down around the paint, whether it is out of exhaustion or because they would rather play outside in but are not afraid of playing inside out. But they want to make you collapse your defense. They want to wear through your legs, especially the Knicks, which, by the way, I have to give a bunch of credit to Tom Thibodeau, the head coach of the Knicks. This is a cat who, as a head coach, played fewer players per game on average than any other NBA team. In the first, I think, 2 series of the NBA playoffs for the Knicks, they were averaging, I believe, like 8.1 players per game having at least 1 minute. Like they played 8 guys a game. There was no point in the game where you had more than 2 starters on the bench at any given time. And remember, last year's run in the NBA playoffs, Tom Thibodeau took a lot of heat for that because when the Knicks were getting deep into series with like the Celtics, you could kind of see them running out of gas. And a lot of Knicks fans put their failure in the playoffs last year on Tom Thibodeau. You can't win if we're in game 6s and game 7s and your starters have played 120 more minutes than their starters because you just don't go to guys off the bench. Last night.
Quick question. How much in basketball does the coach have to do with what players are on the team? Is it all the GM? Or does the player have influence? The coach have influence?
It's team by team. Some GMs are going to give their coaches more say, some less.
So how much say does Thibodeau have?
I don't know is the answer. That's a great question. I'll ask Cody Decker on Saturday. He obviously covers the Knicks being in New York.
Yeah, because you play with who you're given. If you don't have a choice in it, it's the old groceries thing. So I mean, if he has nothing to do with who's on the team, and he knows that the guys that are on the court are it, and the guys on the bench are not. I mean, and from what I understand, his practices are extra hard, so those guys should be in shape.
Yeah, I mean,
it just sounds like an excuse, and they're losing to a better team, and hopefully it finishes up this week.
I would respond to the 3 primary points of that take from the great one. Response number 1 would be, I don't know how much control Tom Thibodeau has over the roster. I don't know. So, like, some coaches have more and some have less. It's very obvious to me that, say, for instance, Jason Kidd in Dallas has very little control over that roster, right? Like, I think we are all comfortable saying that. At this point, it feels like Jay Kidd has very little say, primarily because if he did, Luka Doncic would be a Maverick right now, not a Laker. And then there are other places like Brad Stevens at Boston has, I believe, if I recall correctly, has won a GM of the Year award. The former head coach for the C's moved into their role. My understanding is he actually has given a lot of roster construction decision over to Joe Mazzulla. But at the same time, the head coach wanting a guy doesn't mean the head coach is going to get a guy. The head coach wanting to keep a guy does not mean he's going to be able to keep a guy. The Celtics this offseason are going to have some tough decisions to make because they've got Jason Tatum coming back at $30+ million a year. But do you keep Jaylen Brown on this team, especially after his injury and battling injuries the last couple of years with the amount of money you're going to have to pay him to stay on this squad? You've got other contracts that are also up for renewal or termination. Like, Joe Mazzulla has a lot of say, but I think this offseason is going to kind of be a shock to him. So I don't know the answer to how much control does Tom Thibodeau have over his roster. What I can say is, at the end of the day, everybody on that roster is an NBA player. Everybody on that roster is one of the best 150 basketball players on the face of the planet. And even if they are guys who, don't stand out on an NBA court, what I can say is no matter how hard your practice is, if you run 80 minutes and the other guy runs 40 minutes, you're going to be more tired because that's how bodies work, no matter how great of shape you are in. I'll go race Usain Bolt, but if he's had to sprint for 2 hours before we line it up, maybe I got a shot. Probably not, but not me, like a normal person.
You couldn't hear the stare through the radio. But.
Yeah, I caught eyes from Zoe there. Point is, exhaustion, stamina, these are real things that even the best athletes in the world have to take into consideration. And the reason I started this is to give Tom Thibodeau some credit because last night in the first half alone, he played 10 guys, which is 2 more than the average number of guys that he has played in every series leading up to this one. Part of the reason, though, is because the Pacers play so fast and the Pacers go so deep on the bench that they can keep full afterburner for the entire duration of the game because they trust the legs that they've got coming off the bench to go at least 0 in the plus-minus category, while Tyrese Halliburton is catching a breather over on the bench, while Miles is catching a breather over on the bench. And up until the series, the Knicks haven't really played a style of basketball with the number of dudes that they need to be able to play at that pace for that long. These last 2 games, they have. They won game 3, made it a 2-1 series. Honestly, probably coulda, shoulda, woulda won last night, but Tyrese Halliburton had a historic night. So we're going to talk more about that series, more about Tyrese Halliburton, more about what he means to that Pacers program, and where is Tyrese Halliburton checking in right now in the NBA hierarchy of players. We had this last couple of months. There was this ongoing discussion about the concept of the face of the NBA, who the face of the NBA ought be, who has positioned themselves to take that crown if they want. And Tyrese Halliburton's name never came up. We talked about Ant-Man. We talked about Luka. We talked about these young stars that are up and coming or have recently arrived. Tyrese Halliburton's name never came up in that discussion, and yet here's Tyrese Halliburton having arguably the best postseason in the NBA. Anthony Edwards' team is trailing 3-1 to Oklahoma City. SGA is obviously having himself a hell of a postseason after capturing the NBA MVP award. But I would also point out that while he did win the NBA's MVP award, I would also point out the controversy around SGA getting the MVP is second only to Joel Embiid beating out Nikola Jokic a couple of years ago for the MVP. That's the only recent NBA MVP award that I can remember where there was that much discussion, debate, and conversation around your ultimate winner. So even though he won the MVP, SGA is still being taken to task for his style of basketball. Nobody's talking bleep about Tyrese Halliburton right now. The dude might be having the best postseason in the NBA, and very few people are actively talking about him in that discussion. So we'll get to that later. Also coming up later on in the show, a very surprising discussion from Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, the SEC having its spring meetings down in Destin, Florida. Sankey, who had a long conversation about yesterday, got in front of the mics again yesterday after we got off the air. Yesterday during the show, I said, I think Greg Sankey's full of crap. Yesterday afternoon, I went, really, Greg? Really? So we're going to get into that a little bit later in the show. We'll talk some college baseball as Clemson gets set for its regional this weekend. All that and more. The Rob Brown Show is on your radio. It is The Fan Upstate. All right, let me go get my stuff. Also, cherry Coke Zero. Fan. Didn't know cherry was an option. Nah, I did.
No weird aftertaste?
No, it tastes just like cherry Coke.
Cool.
Doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year? Yeah, I work here. Okay. I'm just double checking. Get it? Because Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year? Oh, you get me, Nia. Yeah, you could say that I double get you. I guess we've taken it too far.
You earn, we match. Discover Cashback Match. See terms at discover.com/credit card.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in
So I got into one of those dumb is a blank conversations last night with Denton Day. Is lemonade, let's see how he phrased the question. Is lemonade a juice? And I said, yeah, it's literally lemon juice. Just because you add water to it doesn't make it not juice.
It's diluted, so it's not.
But it's still the juice.
It's not juice.
It's juice and water.
Right. As soon as you mix into water, it's no longer juice. That's just my first reaction without giving it too much thought. It's the same as saying Kool-Aid's water. You just added Kool-Aid to it. Yeah, technically it's still water, but it's Kool-Aid. I don't know. I think even with a whole lot of thought, probably will stick with it. I don't think it's juice.
We're going to save the Greg Sankey stuff for the next hour of the show. What you need to know about it right now, in order to prepare your thoughts for when we get there, is that apparently Greg Sankey had a conversation with all of the head football coaches in the Southeastern Conference, and they have arrived at a very interesting proposition for the college football playoff field, and it is absolutely not what you think it is going to be. That's how you set up things on the internet, right? The answer may shock you.
So you're saying you just did the equivalent of clickbait?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Isn't that kind of our job to some degree?
Of course. It's called a creative tease.
So stick around for the next hour because I'll put it this way. As much as I'm going to have fun with the answer may shock you.
I think your tease is very creative. I can't wait to find out what it is that you're going to talk about.
It's the long play too. You got to wait for effectively an hour for that one, but it'll be worth it. Stick around. There is a television show coming on this evening. It's a sports thing. Stick with me. I'm not going full nerd on you yet. There's a television show coming on this evening I'm very interested in. So I wonder if you will be based on the two individuals who are going to be sitting down and having a conversation this evening. Well, they've already sat down and had the conversation. This is going to be the airing of said conversation. Allow me to give you, and it's audio only, but allow me to give you the preview trailer dropped for a conversation that, for some reason, I'm wildly interested in.
Hey, how are you doing?
Hey, Bill, how are you, man?
Good.
Nice to
Great,
see
good
you.
to see you. How you doing?
Please welcome the new head football coach at the University of North Carolina, Coach Bill Belichick.
This is really kind of a dream come true.
Clemson will win its third national championship in college football.
Wow, this is Bill Belichick coming to the ACC.
I'm the rookie of the room. BYOG. What is that?
BYOG, bring your own guts.
I got Bill Belichick asking me about BYOG.
I always wanted to be in college because I grew up in college. My dad at North Carolina Navy.
Every kid that has signed at Clemson since February of '09, every single kid has won a championship.
Like Brady Bruschi used to say, which ring do you like the best? The next one.
So tonight on the ACC network, there will be a sit-down conversation hosted by Reese Davis featuring Dabo Swinney and Bill Belichick at a table together talking football.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out where the nerd part was. Is it Dabo? Is Dabo the nerd part?
No, the nerd part
Is this
was
the football? Or?
I set it up as I want to talk about a TV show, and I realized that 90% of the time when Zoe and Rob bring we want to talk about a TV show conversation to the table, it's a cartoon. So I just wanted to point out this is actually a sports-themed show.
This absolutely could be a cartoon. It could. Because I'm interested in this show, except for I have no idea where the ACC network is. It kind of bounces around. I mean, do you know where the ACC network is?
I mean, it's on YouTube TV for me.
Okay.
I've got it starred and favorited.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
My wife hates it.
So I may have a problem finding the channel, but I am interested in the interactions. And wow, that interactions right there was stellar. I can't. It sounded genuine, sounded heartfelt. I believe at the end of the show they're buddies and they're gonna go out and get a meal together, possibly.
I mean, first off, let's be real. They're gonna do this and they're gonna do it the right way. They should have done it in a booth at the Waffle House. I mean, that's the setting for you.
I'm just guessing that Belichick doesn't go to Waffle House.
I don't know, man. I'm going to say this respectfully. Old Hoodie's clearly put on a couple of LBs since he showed up to Chapel Hill.
So?
All right. Now, don't get me wrong. My man is apparently out of the game. So, like, he's fine. You know, he's got 6 rings, or judging by the name of his boat, 7 maybe now. But, I don't think Bill's worried about the physique.
Sometimes when you're set, when people are envious of you, when you're the talk of the town, if you will, let things go.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Listen, I'll keep it a buck. After the wife and I started going steady, Rob Brown put on a couple of LBs worth of the old comfort weight. I've been paying for that ever since.
You know what it is? It's home cooking. So Jordan might be a pretty good cook. Or maybe Bill's doing the cooking. I don't know. Home cooking will do that to you, though.
I mean, I'm the guy who cooks in my relationship, so it's my fault. Either way, point is here. Good on Bill. Bill Belichick and Dabo Swinney tonight. A conversation moderated by Reese Davis. I was looking through yesterday the comments on the trailer of this TV.
Why is this
production?
not moderated by Marty Smith? I mean, do you want to get me there? You put Marty Smith, but you're going with plastic Reese Davis. I mean, a naysayer says what? You put him in there, but if you put Marty Smith in there, then it gets interesting.
You want the real answer? I know what the real
answer is. Because Marty Smith's going to ask some really good questions. Reese Davis, I don't think will.
Buddy of the show, Marty, is absolutely a dude. And I love Marty. We've had him on this show. We'll have him on the show again when we get closer to college football season. I love Marty, but I also follow the conversation. And this is unfortunate and frankly a big old fat steaming turd of an excuse. The answer is, on a national scale, Marty Smith has just kind of looked like the token Southern dude they throw up on ESPN to keep the SEC folks happy.
Yeah, and
which is dumb.
Reese Davis is the next guy with black hair to be the host of. I mean, you know, how much of a difference was there between him and the other guy whose name escapes me right now, even though he still does play-by-play?
Talking about old Fowler?
Yeah, Chris Fowler. Yeah. I mean, how much of a difference is there? They have the same color hair. That's it.
I don't actually disagree with you at all. I actually do think
you need a straight man on those kind of shows, because especially when you're surrounded by all the stuff that they're surrounded by on game day. I get that. You got to have the control guy.
Well, for the purposes of this show, I mean, yes, those dudes are your classic roundtable moderator guy. And the reason why is, especially when you're doing a show like this one where you've got Dabo Swinney, who, whether you think he's a local yokel or you think he's one of the GOATs, Dabo Swinney's a personality guy. Obviously, Hoodie is a personality guy in this last year and a half, but he's still, even Bill's personality when he's at his best is still very dry and monotone, whatever, even when he is being funny. The reason you go with a guy like a Reese Davis instead of a Marty is because a dude like Marty becomes the centerpiece of the conversation. And when you have a 2-time national championship coach and a 6-time Super Bowl winner who is coming into college for the first time, where, let's be real, the intrigue of this to me is that Hoodie, with all the success that he had at the NFL, Hoodie sits down at this table, as he said in that trailer, as the rook, as the new guy. He's got something to learn from Dabo in this conversation. And listening to Bill, who was brought to UNC to bring that NFL mentality, take lessons on the college football mentality from arguably the best college football coach in the game right now, not named Kirby Smart. You want those two clashes of personality to be this show, not your moderator. And even if Marty was playing it as straight as a guy like Marty Smith can play it, he's just so damn charismatic that he would step, if not Dabo, he would step all over Bill.
See, I don't think he would. A couple things. First of all, I think that the ACC and maybe ESPN believes this is going to be the ACC championship. I think it's an ACC championship preview right here. I think they think and hope that that's what it is. Dabo versus Belichick. The other thing is Marty Smith moderates. He puts you at ease. It's not stiff. It's not, oh, this is a work thing. When Marty Smith is interviewing someone, it's comfortable. And he might actually be able to get some answers, whereas Reese Davis will probably just read what is written for him. I mean, this is just perception for me.
I'm not going to disagree. I will also say I do think to some degree when you have these two dudes at the table, Reese's job is to ask as few questions as possible. Reese's job is to let them talk. Reese's job is to let them talk. If one or the other does kind of start to go off the rails, bring it back. But putting all that aside, the reason I'm actually really interested in this conversation is because of the narratives about both of these two head coaches. It's because of the polarizing place that they come from. You have Bill, who has himself said, I am here to run this thing like an NFL team. I'm here to run this thing like I ran the Patriots. I'm here to run this UNC football program as if it is a top-notch NFL program, whereas Dabo has, over the last couple of years, made it very clear that his goal is to maintain as much of that traditional college football vibe as he possibly can at Clemson. That Clemson culture, to me, is an effort to try to maintain that classic college feel. That's not to say don't use the portal, don't participate in NIL, it's not to not do those things. It's just to have them be a factor in what is still a traditional college football environment. So from that perspective, you got two dudes who are, again, according to the narrative, buy into it as you wish or ignore it as you wish, two guys that are going to be running their football programs in very opposite ways, but two guys who very clearly have a lot of respect for the success that they have had. Like you heard Belichick ask Dabo in that teaser trailer there, what is BYOG? And Dabo, I know you couldn't see it, but Dabo, when he asked him that question, turns and he's got this big ear-to-ear bleep-eating grin. And he's like, yo, I just had Bill Belichick ask me my coaching philosophy, which I don't care if you've won a couple of natties and played for more. I got to assume that having a guy like Hoodie sit down and go, hey, tell me about how you've been successful. Because
I got to watch the video because I'm guessing Belichick asked it with a smirk because it's kind of lame. And the philosophy is not lame, but the BYOG pretty lame. I mean, I just want to see if there's a little sparkle in his eye or just a little bit of a smirk.
I think that, first and foremost, and how many times have I said this about Dabo? The only place where lame or cool matters is in that locker room, right? So I've said so many times. The rest of the nation thinks Dabo's kind of a doof. Listen, but it doesn't matter as long as he's still winning at Clemson.
He's won championships, so for sure, and they appear to be on the downward spiral. We'll see. They did win a chance at the playoffs last year and got their butts whipped, but they got in there. So there's that. And he's about to be replaced by Belichick in North Carolina. It's going to get really bad around here. We're not going to see a speck of orange. Suddenly, there's going to be the color of North Carolina everywhere. It's going to be amazing.
I am intrigued by this conversation, even though I do think.
By the way, Tiger Truther, yes, my bias is showing. I am not Rob Brown saying, "Oh, I'm unbiased." I am definitely biased, and if it wasn't showing enough, I can make it show more.
I am very intrigued in this conversation tonight, obviously because of the differing narratives from both of these coaches, the differing philosophy on running a program, the fact that you have got a guy with 6 rings who in this conversation is the lesser guy, is the guy that is looking up and has something to
He's
learn.
never the lesser guy. That is the greatest NFL coach of all time. He's never going
And
to be the lesser
you
guy.
may know, is not in the NFL.
Yeah,
this is a different game.
Is he not? I mean, isn't it kind of becoming the NFL?
Maybe not, but today it's not. So at this table, he's the guy with something to learn from somebody else, which is part of the reason this makes me so intrigued. We'll talk more about this show later in the broadcast. I want to know what your thoughts. Is this must-see TV to you like it is to me? It's on at 7 p.m. tonight on the ACC Net. We'll talk more about it later on in the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
It does sound entertaining, but at the same time, what's the purpose of it? I other than, like I said, they think this is the ACC championship preview. I know you know, and I don't remember. Who are other ACC coaches of note?
I mean, none for the reason that these two guys are of notes. I would say after last year, Rhett Lashley is working his way into that conversation at SMU. I would say Jeff Brom at Louisville's in that conversation, on his way up, upward trajectory.
It makes
Mike
it,
Norvell for a different
If you
reason.
want someone to scan across and go, oh, look, it's 2 coaches I know, that would be the only 2 from the ACC that everyone knows who they are.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
I mean, it's not like the all-star cast from the Big Ten where everyone knows every single
Just
coach.
everyone knows everyone.
Yeah. It's just the ACC. But it's not for everybody. It's for ACC fans. So I probably shouldn't watch it. I'm just going to be overly critical of the questioning, not the answers. Dabo's usually pretty good at interviews. And Belichick can be if he wants to be.
I will say, in my experience with Dabo Swinney, ACC Media Days, couple of post-game press conferences, etc. If Dabo Swinney wants to have a conversation, if he wants an interview to happen, he is one of the most charming and engaging coaches I've ever interviewed. If Dabo Swinney has no interest in a conversation with you, he's very cordial, but he's got no problem. And again, I would also say this was true about Nick Saban, Les Miles when he was at LSU, who I interviewed quite a few times. I would even say Bobby Bowden, who is kind of like stereotyped as being a super nice guy, and he was. If they didn't have any interest in doing a conversation with you, they were very cordial, very polite, but they had zero problem just outright ignoring you.
Sounds like us in the office after the show. I really don't know where the ACC network is on. I guess it's where the sport package stuff is.
It is.
Because sometimes it's not there.
On my YouTube TV, it's listed right behind. It's like ESPN, ESPN2, FCC Net, ACC Net. So coming up in the next hour of the show, we are going to talk about what Greg Sankey said yesterday was the playoff format of choice for the 16 coaches in the Southeastern Conference and whether or not that may change the future of college football. But while we wait on the discussion of the head coaches, there is at least one athletic director who is now openly speaking out about the college football committee itself. The athletic director at the University of Florida, Scott Strickland, was a member of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee from 2018 to 2021. They did welcome some new members and a new chairperson. Baylor AD Mack Rhodes is the chair now. Former Michigan State head coach Mark D'Antonio, Maryland Athletic Director Damon Evans, Middle Tennessee Athletic Director Chris Massaro, longtime college football writer Ivan Maysel, buddy of the show, and former Ole Miss tight end Wesley Walls were all brought in as new members alongside Steve Weiberg, who was the returning member. At the SEC conference meetings down in Destin yesterday, Strickland said, quote, "A committee is not ideal to choose a postseason. I question whether it is appropriate for college football. Anything we can do to make the postseason more objective and less subjective is going to be better. Whether you could do that some other way than automatics, I don't know, but that's the goal," end quote. And I would respond to Steve Strickland by saying, Steve-O, I absolutely and totally agree. I absolutely and totally agree. In an ideal world for college football, there would not be a subjective measuring stick for who gets in. The problem with subjectivity is that we all end up in different places. The problem with subjectivity in the world of sports, not out in real life. In real life, subjectivity is good. Subjectivity drives competition in the market, et cetera, et cetera. You incorrectly think that Pepsi's better than Coke. That's subjective. Coke is, sorry, but it is what it is.
Dr. Pepper is the nectar of the gods.
Again, subjectively speaking, if you think that it is better than root beer, Barks root beer, then I respect your decision to exercise your American right to be wrong. But the point is, subjectivity is great. But when it comes to sports, how many times have we had the conversation that in an ideal sports world revolves around everyone having an equal opportunity to be named the champion? Everybody has an equal opportunity to go win a title. The problem with college football is obviously that it is so damn big and it is so spread out that there is no objective way to run it. The only way to create objectivity would be to split college football into multiple factions. The highest level with the SEC and the Big Ten, a secondary level with the ACC and the Big 12, and maybe another smaller conference or two, and have multiple national championships. But as the professional level of football has proven, and as I have said is a working theory of mine for a very long time now, we as United States of Americans do not watch anything but the best of the best.
America.
We do not waste our time on anything that is not the best of the best. And I know that because the UFL exists. And it's honestly, it's not bad football. It's not. It's not bad football. It's just that you're so accustomed to Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes that anything less than the best of the best feels boring. Anything less than tippy top, ultimate top, premier entertainment feels like you're wasting your time to some degree. That is a perspective, I think, shared by the overwhelming majority of sports fans. This is the exact reason that despite being in what I think is the golden age of the WNBA, with the WNBA producing as good of a product as it has ever put on the hardwood, I still constantly see people on the internet going, oh, it's boring. It's boring. They don't dunk. it's boring. Because when you've watched Luka and LeBron, when you've watched Ant and Tyrese play, yeah, it's a different style of basketball. It's a different game. Still wildly engaging to me, but that is, say it with me, subjective. College football, I don't know that there is a way to do it objectively. A way that there can be a uniform measuring stick that encompasses everybody eligible for a national championship. I'm talking from the Ohio States and the Georgias and the Bamas and the Clemsons down to the Boise States and the UNLVs. I don't know that there is a way to lay down an objective measuring stick and say, in order to make the playoff, you must do X, Y, and Z. In the NFL, there is. You must either be one of the 4 division winners or be one of the wild card winners. You know what the thing is that you have to accomplish to get in. You know what that mark is from week 0. In college football, we have no idea. Steve Sarkisian yesterday at the SEC meetings down in Destin, Florida. Steve Sark got on a microphone and he said that he does not think that we will ever see another undefeated college football champion, or if we do, they must be celebrated forever.
So the idea, I think we've all got to wrap our brain around. I don't know if we'll ever see an undefeated national champion again. If we do, that's a really good team because it's just so difficult. And it's not so, it's difficult, yes, because of the quality of the opponents you play, but it's so difficult to stay healthy that long. I mean, you're going to have teams in years like we had last year where you lose your starting quarterback. And how do you respond to your quarterback being down? Or you lose both your left tackles. That happened to us last year, or your left tackle, then your right tackle. And do you have the depth to endure? And so I think you're going to see teams more and more now, 2 losses, 3 losses, maybe even 4 losses that get in. Not very different than the NCAA baseball tournament of what that looks like. I looked at Vanderbilt, I think, as the number 1 seed. There was a point in the season, they were 11-10. And now they're the number 1 seed in the baseball tournament. And so I don't know, and we kind of saw it in basketball this year with Florida and them winning the national. This idea of somebody's going to go 16-0 in college football, man, put a statue up somewhere of that team, because I just don't know if that's going to happen again.
So Steve says probably never going to see another undefeated champion. And if we do, that's the mark of a really damn good team. 16 games is a lot of games to win for anybody. Doesn't happen in the NFL. It's going to be the same here. But I would argue that by the same token.
I don't recall. Did anyone go into the playoff last year undefeated?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I think that.
Because I thought someone was, but maybe I'm wrong.
I would say that for me, because of that, there is no way to set down an objective measuring stick. Now, we did try for a very long time to have an objective measuring stick. And as a texter sent in just mere moments ago, I believe it was Jacob. In fact, I know it was. Jacob texted the show and said, won't be long until we get back to the BCS algorithm or an improved version for the playoffs. And that may actually be correct. Remember, during the BCS era, nobody was happy with it either. This absolutely does, because I've seen a lot of, over the last 2 years, I guess, I've seen a lot of love for the BCS system on social media.
By the way, Michigan went undefeated.
That's right. I knew that.
That wasn't last year. It was the year before. Still checking on last year.
To me, there is the possibility we get there, because that's about as close to an objective measuring stick as you get. But keep in mind,
Oregon was undefeated.
The BCS did indeed. That is exactly right, because they were the favorites going into that thing to win the championship. The BCS system did factor some human subjective elements into it when it was spitting out its numbers. But the BCS also determined 2 spots to play for a title, not 12 or 16. And I do wonder if there is room for some sort of return to that type of, as close as we can get, objective decision-making process where we say we're going to put all these numbers and all these variables into the computer. We have obviously dramatically advanced technology since the BCS.
You want AI BCS?
I do not. I don't know that I have a preference. To be honest with you, I should. It's my job to have a preference. I don't know if I do. On one hand, I would say yeah.
How dare you?
On one hand, I would say yes, because theoretically, in an ideal world, an AI-generated program that makes these selections would be, again, theoretically in a perfect world, would be able to be instructed to leave all human subjectivity out of it and just look at the data points. Who played who, when, where, road trip, weather conditions, defensive stats, offensive metrics, plug them all in together and just say, performance-wise, with no opinion involved, these are the 12 or the 16 best teams available. On the flip side, I would also point out and say that this whole conversation we've had for years and years in the football landscape of the eye test. I just look at a team and I go, regardless of what the numbers on the page say, I can look at this team and tell you that they're one of the best 12 best teams, 16 best teams in football. So I don't think Steve Strickland, the AD at Florida, is wrong when he says that I don't know if a committee is the best way to determine the college football playoff field, whether it's 12 or 16 teams. I actually agree with him on that. However, I don't know that there is going to be any system that a majority of people are going to go, yeah, that's the right way to do this. That the BCS was hated. Granted, it was only for 2 spots, not 12 or 16, but we all hated it. And then it went away, and we went to this committee, and now we all hate that, and we all love the BCS again. And if we go to a new updated and AI BCS, there may be some reality in the future where we all pine and go, oh, I miss the days where we had a committee. This is the reason that I have said from the beginning of the college football playoff selection committee that for me, I am fine with the concept of a committee. I want it big as hell. I want 1,000 people in that room.
Dude,
and I want them in a room.
Come on. There is no perfect way to determine this. People are going to be mad no matter what the system. There is no system where you can go where everyone will go, okay, that's good. Yes, finally, we found the system that works. Always going to be someone unhappy with it. So far, this is the best that we've had.
I don't even necessarily disagree with that. Again, I still think, as I think with any committee that makes any decision that involves policy of any type, that involves all of us, and for the intents and purposes of this discussion, I will work under the assumption that if you're listening to this show right now, that you're a college football fan and therefore one of us. When any policy group is making a potential change to policy that impacts everybody, I think you have as many voices in the room as you can have. You should have voices that represent the power and authority holders. You should have voices in the room at the table that represent the downtrodden and impoverished. You should have everybody. You should have people that represent the Georgias and the Ohio States, just like you have people that represent the Louisvilles and the Boise States and the Wake Forest is. You should have as many people in the room, and every one of them should get their opportunity to make their argument, to sway hearts and minds, so that while we'll never be able to be certain that we definitely got the best 12 or 16 or 24 or down the line or whatever, at least we can say that the opinion is that the 16 or the 12 or the 24 that went in, the opinion of a huge group of people, which represents all walks of life in the college football landscape, had their say. And this is what we came up with. So I'm good with what Steve Strickland had to say, but I would also point out, I don't know what change to the system you can make. Because if it is going to be based on humans, It is by default going to be a committee. That's what a group of people is. Even if you said we're going to exclusively leave it up to the AP poll. What is the AP poll? A committee of voters. Still a committee. They may not talk, but a committee of voters. So the only way you're going to get away from a computer or from a committee is to go back to a computer, something we already did once. Texter said, did we not learn anything? Why would we go back to the BCS? We moved away from it because we didn't want computers to pick the Natty. When the BCS was in place, it always felt like the team ranked thing should have been 2, and consistently it got the Natty wrong. The only reason I would say AI BCS might be the way to go is because it's less likely that you screw up with missing 17 who should be 16 and truly missing the champ than 3 instead of 2. We'll talk more about this later in the show. I got that Greg Sankey conversation coming up. Water cooler cheat sheet next. Sports Flash now.
All right, the New York Knicks are 1 game from elimination after a 130-121 Pacers win in Game 4. Tyrese Halliburton had a triple-double with 32 on 11 of 23 shooting with 15 assists and a dozen boards, and Pascal Siakam added 30 on 11 of 21. Game 5 is tomorrow night. The Edmonton Oilers have the Dallas Stars on the brink of elimination after a 4-1 win last night. The Oilers took a 2-1 lead after goals from Leon Draisaitl and Corey Perry and scored 2 empty netters in the final 2.5 minutes to seal the win. The Atlanta Braves dropped Game 1 of a 3-game road set against Philadelphia 2-0. Spencer Strider went 4.2 innings, giving up 1 hit and 1 run while striking out 7. The Braves had just 5 hits and left 10 runners on base. Hour number 2 of the Rob Brown Show is next, right here on the Fan Upstate. This shirt, by the way, is the Samoan Werewolf, Jacob Fatu. It's a wrestling T-shirt. First wrestling T-shirt I've bought in a while. Love that dude. He is awesome, and especially like the Samoan Werewolf. It's just a good name. We've had the opportunity to interview many wrestlers. I'd love to get a chance to interview him. I believe I have an awesome radio voice. Here's your game of the week. Let me emphasize week. Morning, Kane.
Hi, Kane.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
All right. The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Rob Brown, the Great Lonzo, and you. The Hub City Spartanburger text line is open for you right now. 844-326-3663.
Oh, man, I was really over that.
844-326-3663. You can text that number. We'll read them on the air. We've got a few texts so far that I have read, and I'm going to be better about reading all your texts, okay?
Nope.
All of them.
Nope.
All of them.
Nope. Nope.
You can also call that number, 844-326-3663, and you can jump on the air with us if you've got a take. If you don't want to do that, you can shoot us a tweet at The Rob Brown Show, at Lonzo on Word, or get up at everybody in here by tweeting at The Fan Upstate if you'd like to get at us in that direction. If you got something long format, but you don't want to come on the air with it, Rob.Brown at thefanupstate.com. Rob.Brown at thefanupstate.com. All of those are ways for you to get in contact with and be a part of the radio program. We've got a lot coming up in this hour of the show. Next segment, Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, said that there was a big old round table discussion between he and the 16 head football coaches of the Southeastern Conference down at the SEC spring meetings in lovely Destin, Florida yesterday. And the playoff proposal that the 16 head coaches are largely in favor of is not at all the one that I expected that they would have largely been in favor of. Now, whether or not we believe Greg is a different story, and we will address that coming up in the next segment. Also, our stupid, dumb off-season question of the day. We won't always have stupid, dumb off-season questions of the day, but sometimes they come up because this is radio and we're dorks. Shut up.
I am interested to see what makes it not just stupid, but stupid dumb, because that adds a whole level to it.
Yeah, there's stupid questions. There's dumb questions. There are no dumb questions. There are only dumb people, except there are dumb questions. Yesterday, and there
are dumb questions and dumb people, and sometimes smart people ask dumb questions.
And sometimes dumb people ask smart questions.
Yes.
This is all very true. So, here is the question. I got into this with Denton Day last night. We're not going to talk about this now. I want you to stew on it. I want you to think on it. I want you to really come up with an answer, because Denton Day and I are often accused of being the same person. Of course, Denton Day is the host of College Football Overtime on Sirius XM. Buddy of the show College Football Overtime on Sirius XM. He also hosts his own show in Baltimore, Maryland. He is also a host on the BetMGM network. We are regularly accused of being the same person. We have the same haircut. We have the same beard. We dress the same way. We have a lot of the same takes. He's a very smart guy, and dare I say, sexy as hell.
Also, he's also a wrestling fan.
And he is also a wrestling
guy.
That. He and I are very...
And an anime fan.
Yes, he is. Very, very often accused of being...
Which makes him a step above you. I just want you to know that.
I mean, fair enough for you nerds. Very often accused of being the same guy. But we got into it last night because he asked a question on Instagram that I responded to with great violence. He asked the question. It is one we are going to discuss and debate later, because somebody also dropped a banger on the is a hot dog a sandwich discussion that we are going to have during the audio blitz coming up in 1 hour from right now. Denton Day asked the question, is lemonade a juice? And my gut reaction was, yeah, it's lemon juice. Even if you put water in it, it's still lemon juice. No. I would say up until the point that it is 51% water, in which case then I would say you've got a mix. But if it's 51% lemon juice, lemonade is juice. We're not going to debate it now.
No, just a quick question. How did you think I was going to respond?
Honestly, in agreement with me. I really did. I
Wow.
really thought you were going to say lemonade's a juice.
I hate that I disappointed you.
It's okay.
But, you know.
I'm used to being disappointed.
Yeah,
Look at my entire career.
I'm not a science guy. I'm sure you're going to base everything that you're going to say later on science to prove why it's a juice.
No, I mean, I don't know that you can always utilize science to define things, and I don't know that there is a hard definition. So we're going to come back and discuss and debate that later on in the show, as well as get into, because it is peak off-season time, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody dropped a banger on, is a hot dog a sandwich? Had a take that I was like, oh, I never thought about it that way, and it's very interesting. So we'll come up with that later on in the show. However, it is 7:06 in the morning. You have exactly 54 minutes until you have got to get your patootie into the office, sat down in that chair, respond to those passive-aggressive emails, and get ready to handle your business or perhaps somebody else's business. But we all know what you're going to work for. You're going to work for those 3 or 4 15-minute breathers that you get. We know it keeps you alive. It's those handful of times that you walk down the hallway, you go to the water cooler, you set up shop, and you talk sports with your coworkers that love sports. That's what keeps you coming back for more. And if you're going to talk sports in the office, well, you have to know what's going on in the world of sports. And if you have to know what's going on in the world of sports, ladies and gentlemen, you need this.
Are you ready for the playbook of the peculiar? The almanac of the absurd? And the encyclopedia of the extraordinary? Well, you better be, because we're diving headfirst into the 3 top stories that will have your coworkers saying,
"That doesn't work for me, brother."
Even before they take their first bathroom break.
No.
Here we go. Welcome to the Water Cooler Cheat Sheet on the Fan Upstate.
It is the Water Cooler Cheat Sheet, the top 3 sports stories that you need to know before you get to the office and start talking sports with your coworkers this morning. When you do, this is what you're going to be talking about. Allow us, if you will, to dive right in with item numero uno. As it has been for the past few weeks, and as it will be for the next few weeks, your NBA and NHL playoff check-in is item number 1. We start over in the Association, where the Indiana Pacers have now pushed the New York Knickerbockers to the brink of elimination. Indy now leads that series 3-1 after a 130-121 night last night. Tyrese Halliburton, a genius, 32 points, a dozen boards, 15 assists in a triple-double. They also got 30 from Pascal Siakam on 11 of 21 shooting and 3 of 4 from behind the arc. He had 5 boards and a couple of assists. 16 from Aaron Nesmith. They also got 20 off the bench from Benedict Mathurin, who had 5 of 8 from the floor, 20 points, added a couple of boards and a couple of assists into that tally as well. Over for the Knicks, 31 out of Jalen Brunson on 9 of 19 from the floor, 2 of 6 from deep. He did go to the stripe a dozen times, knocked down 11 of them, 24 from Karl Anthony Towns. And this might end up being the most interesting part of the game. It is not the win. It is not the fact that the Knicks are now on the brink of being eliminated from championship contention. What is the most interesting here is the fact that Big Cat was clearly not well. Around halftime, he was seen hanging on to his right knee, trying to rub out some pain from something. Then, down the stretch, late in the game, Pacers have the ball, dribble drive, penetrate. Big Cat goes up for the stuff and knee-to-knee contact on that same knee. Karl Anthony Towns was not the same guy at the end of that game, clearly in discomfort with a flat tire under his right thigh. Do not know what impact that's going to have, because let's keep it a buck. Jalen Brunson has been very good in this postseason. OG Anunoby has been very good in this postseason. 22 for him on 7 of 16 from the floor last night. Mikal Bridges has been a phenomenal defensive player for the Knicks in this postseason run. But it is the Big Cat, Karl Anthony Towns, that has been the heart and soul of this Knicks team in this postseason run. If this is going to be a lingering issue for Cat, if that discomfort is something that is going to be hampering him in game number 5 when this team gets together with with the Pacers back in New York City. If Cat can't be that guy, you end up with a problem because Miles Turner is that guy. 13 points last night in the middle, but 8 or so of those points came in big moments of the game, big moments in the game specifically where Cat did not look like himself under the basket. If this is a lingering injury, it could spell disaster for the New York Knickerbockers. We'll talk more about that later on in the show. To the NHL we go, where the Dallas Stars are now facing elimination. A team that many of y'all picked to ultimately win the Stanley Cup now finds themselves in a 3-1 hole to the Edmonton Oilers after a 4-1 victory for the Canadiens last night. Leon Draisaitl knocked through a power play goal about halfway through the first period. Jason Robertson on a power play goal for Dallas would draw them level 7 minutes into the second. Corey Perry, less than 3 minutes later, would find the back of the net. 3 goals, 3 power play goals between these two teams. Edmonton would take a 2-1 lead into the locker room for intermission number 2. In the third period, we played level hockey for 17 minutes and 33 seconds until Kasperi Kapanen found the back of the net on an empty netter with Kulak and Draisaitl assisting. Adam Henrique found an empty netter with less than a minute to play. That would ultimately put this thing out of reach for Dallas. So Edmonton now, with a 4-1 win last night, leads that series 3-1. Let's go to item number 2. I've said a few times that I promise you Atlanta Braves scores are not going to be a consistent water cooler cheat sheet item throughout the season. Because I know that there are many of you that are fans of the Bravos, but I also know that most of you probably are not. However, I also said yesterday, if the Braves drop 2 or 3 out of this 3-game series on the road at Philadelphia, I believe that I can go ahead and say on May 29th when Game 3 concludes, if they drop 2 or 3, I personally will consider the Atlanta Braves out of the race for the National League's Eastern Division crown. I am so convicted of that I said it last night on BetMGM tonight to a national audience as well. PJ Glasser said, how are you betting the Braves? Do you take a divisional championship bet now, or do you wait to the end of the season, see if they get hot, and maybe see if you can get some long wild card World Series action in? And my answer to PJ was the exact same take I had on the show yesterday. I am not betting on the Braves at all if they drop 2 out of 3 to Philly. They dropped game 1 last night 2-0. Spencer Strider took the loss. He is 0-3 on the season, went 4.2 innings, gave up just 1 hit, 1 run. It was earned, walked 4, K'd 7 on 90 pitches before he got yanked last night. They went to De Los Santos, who gave up 1 hit. Dylan Lee, Montero, and Hernandez all came in. Hernandez probably coulda, shoulda, woulda been tagged with the loss. 1 inning, 2 hits, 1 run earned, K'd 2, walked 2. Ranger Suarez, 4 hits given up in 6 innings for Philly, did strike out 8 Atlanta Braves. The Braves mustered just 5 hits. They left 10 runners on bases. They only had 2 at-bats with runners in scoring position last night. They did, because they're the Braves, go 0-for-2 in those 2 at-bats. Matt Olson and Austin Riley both had an opportunity. Neither one of them able to come through. The Braves drop game 1 of a 3-game set on the road at Philly by a scoreline of 2-0. That drops them to 25-28 on the season, 9-19 on the road, and they are now 9.5 games back of the Phillies. Even if the Phillies later on in the year, the reality of the situation is that there is a number that is not overcomable, even if you go on a run and the Phillies down the stretch. And I think if they are at 11.5 at the end of the month of May, that's a lot of comebacking to do. Let's jump to item number 3. Only going to give you the headline here because this is the conversation that we have been teasing to come up in the next segment of the radio broadcast. The SEC's spring meetings are taking place as we speak down in sunny Destin, Florida. And there's been a few things that have come out of this. Yesterday, I may end up apologizing, find out in the next segment, said that I thought Greg Sankey was full of crap. Because Greg Sankey said over the weekend, and by the way, I say respectfully full of crap, because his job is the betterment of the Southeastern Conference. His job is to say and do the things that are in the best interest of the conference, not college football at large. And I thought Greg Sankey did that over the weekend when he said that the SEC is not currently committed to any one particular format for the college football playoffs. The SEC as a conference is not locked into the 4-4-2-2-1-3 model, nor any other model of determining who gets in, what the seeding is, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, I think Greg is full of crap. And again, respectfully, I would be too. I would do the same thing. Because rule number 1 of negotiating is never show a card until you are in the 11th hour. Never say what you are happy with, because your starting point should be nowhere near your ending point. So I said Greg Sankey's full of crap because I think when it comes down to it, the SEC is going to ask for more. They're going to say 4 automatic qualifiers, only 4 for us, the SEC. Why get 4 when it just means more? You should give us 5. You should give us in the Big Ten 5, take 2 at-larges away. I thought that this was how it's going to play out. Well, yesterday, Greg said that the 16 teams of the SEC had their coaches sit down together with the commish and discuss what format they might be the most interested in advocating for, and it was absolutely...
tell me. I want to know.
I am going to tell you, Lonzo, right after this break.
No.
Because here's the thing. If you'll allow me to go clickbaity for just a minute, the format they chose may shock you. Find out what Sankey said next on The Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
That's Frankenstein. Steven.
Frankenstein.
Frau Brucker.
Speaking of Frankenstein, the wife found out that her job next year, and it's a long time from now, but spring next year, is sending her to a conference down in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, cool.
And her boss...
Keep showing more of that.
Yeah. So her boss, who is a fan of the show and was before she started working there, listens on the reg, told her that he knows that I'm a big nerd, big Star Wars guy, big classic, old school horror movie guy, not the new stuff, but the old stuff, the old Frankenstein stuff, and told her that he would not have a problem, though obviously I'd have to get myself there, would not have a problem if I went with her down to Orlando and stayed with her in the hotel for the couple of days and weekend that she is being sent down for that conference. And so I think next spring I'm going to get to go see the new classic Monster Universe at Universal. Hi, Chris. I'm going to take us off the stream for just a minute, guys. Y'all stay right there. We'll be right back. Down show is on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. Greg Sankey is the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference. And I owe Greg an apology, I think. I owe Greg an apology because yesterday I said Greg Sankey was full of crap. Over the weekend at the spring meetings of the Southeastern Conference down in sunny Destin, Florida, Greg Sankey said that the Southeastern Conference has not yet committed to any particular or specific format for the college football playoff. And I accused Greg, respectfully, of being full of crap.
Yes, respectfully.
Respectfully. And I accused him of, respectfully, being full of crap because my thought was, as we have not arrived at a specific format for the 16-team playoff, which at this point is going to happen not this season, but next, that Greg Sankey was going to keep all the cards close to the vest so that the SEC could ask for more because it just means more. And so my thought, my belief was Greg Sankey in the Southeastern Conference, as they should. I'm not faulting Greg for this. His one job is not to make college football better. It is to improve the betterment. It is for the betterment of the Southeastern Conference. That Greg would not give anything away so that when Greg and the Southeastern Conference sat down at the next meeting of the College Football Playoff Committee to determine what next year's 16-team playoff format was going to be, Greg could, again, ask for more. My floated hypothesis with absolutely nothing behind it other than my own gut feeling and intuition, which is occasionally incorrect, was that Greg would go call up his boy Tony Petitti, the commissioner of the Big Ten, and they would say, hey, we get 4 automatic qualifiers under the plan that seems to have the most traction. What if we ask for 5? What if we say instead of a 4-4-2-2-1-3 model, where there are 3 at-large bids after all the conference champions have been determined, what if we say 5 automatic qualifiers for the 2 big conferences, 2 for the ACC and the Big 12, the mid-tier conferences, 1 for the best group of 5 champ, and then 1 at-large bid for the rest of the field. And again, is that good for college football? In my subjective and personal opinion, no. But Greg Sankey's job is not to do what's best for college football. It's to do what's best for the SEC. And considering there is a payout in the millions of dollars for a team just to get into the playoff, and then obviously tens of millions of dollars as you play deeper into the playoff, it would make sense that Greg Sankey would do everything in his power to get another team in as a freebie. Yesterday, Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, said that he and the 16 head football coaches of the SEC had a sit-down roundtable meeting. And Sankey said that in that meeting, the coaches largely talked about what he called a, quote, 5+11 model. Sankey said, quote, they talked about, I'll call it a 5+11 model, and our own ability to earn those earn those berths. At the coaching level, the question is, why wouldn't that be fine? Why wouldn't we do that? We talked about 16.
And a boat are the same thing. So way to go.
A boat has a berth.
Okay, well, still, it's nautically related.
Fair enough. At the coaching level, the question is, why wouldn't that be fine? Why wouldn't we do that? We talked about 16 with them, so good conversation. Not a destination, but the first time I've had the ability to go really in-depth with ideas with them. Now, obviously, Sankey, along with Pete Bavacqua of Notre Dame and the rest of the other FBS commissioners still will all have to have their sit-down together meeting. And Sankey did say that meeting, which is right now scheduled for December 1st, he said it's probably too early to say this is where we are, this is what we want, this is what we will push for. But I am going to say this. A big, hearty pat on the back to the coaches of the Southeastern Conference for showing some stones here. A big pat on the back for the coaches in the SEC for having some guts with an N. Good for you guys, because that is what it should be. Look, I am fine with having some spots for conference champions. And on top of that, it does one other thing that still matters a lot, which is it makes the conference championship games still matter a lot, which under, I think, the proposed format, which is the 4-4-2-2-1-3 or whatever the hell it is, those conference championship games for the big conferences largely become irrelevant. With a straight seeding model, which we are going to this year, where it is just the top-ranked teams in the order that they are ranked, those conference championship games lose a lot of weight. But if the only guaranteed way in is to win the conference, now all of a sudden, the ACC tournament in Charlotte, the SEC tournament in Atlanta, the Big Ten, I say tournament, the ACC championship game in Charlotte, the SEC championship game in Atlanta, the Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis, all of a sudden, these games are arguably as important as they have ever been. And that is good for college football, A, and B, the other thing it does, and I think this to me is why the 16 coaches of the SEC should get a pat on the back of respect and congratulations for having stones, is that this creates a world that we are looking for, that ideal sports world where it is even playing field for everybody. You already have the advantage of being in a conference where by default, your strength of schedule is going to be better than anybody else can even possibly put together if they wanted to. And with the SEC and the Big Ten, who will be going to a 9-team scheduled conference, or excuse me, a 9-conference game, a 9-conference game schedule at some point, it is going to be even more difficult because, as we talked about with that USC Notre Dame rivalry last week, if you are a team that has to play 9 conference games in the SEC, in the Big Ten, hell, in the ACC and the Big 12, in what world are you going out and scheduling with your 3 remaining, and for many schools, Clemson and South Carolina, your 2 remaining games? Oh, and by the way, Clemson, in years where Notre Dame isn't naturally on your schedule, they are now with that 12-year partnership. That means there are going to be years where Clemson has 1 game available to schedule. In what world would you schedule an out-of-conference world beater to fill that slot? Your schedule's already tough enough as it is, especially if we go to 9.
By the way, really quick, you would do that if you're in a weaker conference and you want to make yourself prove that your team is good enough to be in the playoff. The other thing is, so I didn't really understand this till now. I want to make sure I understand it correctly. So the seeding happens after the championship games.
Yes.
So is there anyone out there opposed to this?
I don't know yet. I mean, this literally dropped yesterday afternoon.
Okay, because I didn't know if you've heard of anyone. I haven't seen
anybody opposed to it
because I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it's really good.
Well, let's start with this. I do know who would be opposed to it, and that's the athletic directors and the presidents. Because if I'm in the SEC and I know that at the least 4 teams could go in, and those teams make that. And again, right now, it's what? It's $14 million just for getting in, and then an X bonus of $10 million every level that you advance in the playoffs. If I get my team in, and that's a big windfall profit day, yeah, I would love an automatic berth. I'll tell you who this could impact. South Carolina. Yesterday, I was on the BetMGM Tonight Show with Ryan Horvat. We were talking. PJ said, if I gave you $100 to bet an over win total for South Carolina and Clemson, South Carolina's at 7.5, Clemson's at 9.5, who would you feel more comfortable putting that $100 on? And my answer was, I'd put 50 on both. Let's split them right down the middle. I think both of these teams could send a quarterback to the Heisman Trophy celebration in New York City at the end of the year. And if both of them do that, it's largely probably because they both hit the over total. Well, in the format with 12 teams and 4 AQ berths, which again, is not the case this year. But if it was, tell me that doesn't automatically make South Carolina a threat to grab that 4th SEC spot. Of course it does. So a year like this year, that could be a big problem.
Would it have happened last year? I think it would have, right?
Yes, I believe it would have. So this will have an impact for a lot of schools. But it is also a matter, and I'll keep it a buck. I've gone back and forth about why it is that these coaches would want this. And the first thing I came up with is this. More than I think any other group of people, and I got to give them credit for this, more than I think any other group of people, it seems to me that the loudest group of people in the just give us the 16 best teams discussion are coaches. Like I've heard Dabo Swinney say it. Lane Kiffin said it yesterday at the meetings. Steve Sarkisian said it yesterday at the meetings. Give us the 16 best teams. And this, arguably, is the best way to do that. Let's go 5 conference champs, the 4 plus the 1 non-power conference champion, and then the other 11 spots just filled with the next best 11 teams. Just fill them up, and let's see who is the best. So I got a lot of respect for the coaches of the SEC. Now, will it matter? I don't know. Because, again, Greg Sankey's job is to make the most money he can for the conference and put it in the best position it can to keep being the powerhouse conference that it is. The athletic directors and school presidents are going to look at it. I mean, think about it if you're South Carolina. You're going to look and go, hey, if the SEC gets 4 in, all we got to do is be top 4 in the SEC, and we bank a couple of $10 million. Yeah, I want that plan. But the coaches looked at this, and they're talking about it like football guys. I want to see the best teams go play for a natty. I want to see the best teams in the field of 16. I want to see the best teams up against each other on the gridiron to determine who is the best team. And that's what this is. A 5+11 model is not at all what I would have thought. Even if it happened, I would have assumed Greg would have had that conversation and walked out of that room and said, yeah, I'm never telling anybody our coaches said that. I'm never telling a soul that that's what they want because it's not best for the conference. But I got a hell of a lot of respect for the coaches for saying that, and I got a hell of a lot of respect for Greg Sankey for grabbing a mic and being willing to say, that's what the coaches want. And they think it's best for football because, hey, so do I. Back after this on The Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, excuse me just a minute. Appreciate y'all being here. Don't go anywhere. So a 5+11 format. That would see the top 5 college football conference champions plus 11 at-large bids. According to Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, is the preference of the head coaches within that conference. And as I said in the last segment, I got a lot of respect for the coaches because let's keep it a buck here. The best chance to get your team into the playoffs would be if your conference has as many automatic qualifiers as possible. And let's be very clear. This does not mean that when December 1st rolls around and when the College Football Playoff Selection Committee gets together to determine what the format will be for the first year of the 2026 college season, the first year of the 16-team playoff field, does not mean that the SEC will ask for this. I think they will take it into consideration, take it under advisement. But I do think it is very likely, I will not say probable, but I think it is very likely that Greg Sankey will, on behalf of the Southeastern Conference, still be in favor of the 4-4-2-2-1-1-3 model, where the SEC would get 4 automatic qualifiers. Why? Because it is unlikely, not impossible, but unlikely that the 4th best team in the SEC is going to be one of those best 11. Remember, only 11 at-large spots. Unlikely that the 4th best team in the SEC is going to, at least consistently, be in that next 11 group. And I think because of that, it would make sense for the SEC to say, we want as many teams as we can get in. And while we might occasionally get 3 more teams in that 11 at-large field, realistically, more often than not, and certainly the only way to guarantee we are getting 3 teams in plus our conference champion, is to go to a format where we have 4 automatic qualifiers. My objection to that system is solely from a sports mentality. It is solely from a sports mentality of, I think that even though it will be a small miracle if a non-Big Ten, SEC, ACC, or Big 12 team ever wins a national championship again. If one does, if a G5 team, if a non-Power 4 team ever wins a natty, the documentaries about that program are going to be great. But it's unlikely to happen, and if it ever does, it will be absolutely uncommon. So for me, I think the college football field should be set in a way that all of the teams in those conferences genuinely feel like they have the best chance to get in and earn a spot. Even if there is a year where a Boise State stumbles upon an Ashton Jeanty, a historic caliber player that carries them to a 12-0, 13-0, 12-1, smaller conference championship, and therefore by default gets the 1 group of 5 at-large, there would still be 11 more spots. So if another team from another conference also goes 12-1, or maybe a school from a smaller conference. And again, I think this is going to be far less likely in the future because why would I if I play for a big conference that has a 9-conference game schedule? Why in the world would I book a championship caliber second tier conference team on my schedule? But if a team comes out of the Mountain West and they go 10-2 in the regular season, and let's say their losses are to 2, Big Ten and SEC teams, or an SEC and an ACC team, or whatever, they would still be considered a very good team and a team that maybe has an outside underdog puncher's chance of a shot. But if we go with the 4-4-2-2-1-3-1-1-3-3-19-42-8-6-7-5-3-0-9 format, They probably just get locked out by numbers.
Did you say 8675309?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I was just making sure I heard that.
If I got to go random string of numbers, Jesse is the easiest one to go with.
Jenny
is okay. I'm locked in football mode right now. Okay, sports guy over here. So I think 5 plus 11 is the best way to do it. It genuinely makes it feel like everybody who's not in the Power 4 has a chance. And oh, by the way, those 11 spots can still be earned by SEC, Big Ten, ACC, and Big 12 schools. In fact, I would argue that those 11 spots will still likely most often be filled up by Power 4 conference schools, probably with a tilt towards the SEC and the Big Ten. So they still have the advantage. They've got the advantage of, by default, having a strength of schedule advantage that smaller conferences just cannot match. By default, they have the advantage of the financial backing for having more teams more routinely go to the playoffs. This just levels the field on the field. There's not a way, well, scratch that, without dramatic reform that many of you would grab pitchforks and torches over. Without dramatic revolutionary change to the game, there is no way to level the playing field in terms of resources. There's just not. There's no way to say that UNLV and Alabama start the year not just with the same opportunity to earn a playoff spot, but start the year with the same financial resources to grow their program with. So if we can't make that level across the playing field, we at least can make the on-the-field competition level, where the opportunity to earn an at-large bid is identical for UNLV and Alabama. Alabama's got the advantage of playing in the SEC. The strength of schedule by default is going to be better. Alabama has the advantage of playing in the SEC, meaning the financial payouts are going to just be exponentially better. But UNLV has the opportunity, I don't know why I picked UNLV, but UNLV has the opportunity to be the plucky little underdogs, to go find that Travis Hunter or that Ashton Janty who, for whatever reason, just wants to be a Wolfpack guy. They go on a 12-0 regular season. Maybe they don't have the toughest strength of schedule, but they are 12-0. And the committee or the computers or whatever say, yeah, they earned a shot. They earned an opportunity to go compete. And now they have it, where they might not under the 4-4-2-2-1-1-3 model. They may not have that opportunity just because of numbers. So I will say that. I am at the point now where I think whatever format we arrive at, the coaches in college football should have an opportunity to have a say. As I've said a gazillion times and will a gazillion more, Greg Sankey's job is to look out solely and only for the financial interest of the SEC. Tony Petitti's job is to look out solely and only for the interest of the Big Ten. That's it. So it would not shock me if December 1st, when this committee gets together to discuss, debate, and probably vote on a playoff format for the expanded 16-team playoff of 2026, it would not shock me if they said, yeah, we don't really give a damn what Shane Beamer thinks. We don't really give a damn what Dabo Swinney thinks. We don't really care. Because our job is to make sure we are getting as much in the coffers as we can and guaranteeing ourselves the payout of a minimum of 4 teams in the playoffs is the best way to do that. So they may vote against the college football coaches. But at least the coaches in this spot feel like we should make it level, at least on the field. There is only one place the playing field is level, and that is from the opening kickoff to the closing whistle. For those 3 hours of football, those two teams have the exact same opportunity to win. Those two teams have the exact same playing field, same dimensions, same surface, same ball, same music, same crowd, same everything. They have the exact same opportunity to win. Off the field, that's not true at all. But if we're going to make the game have some level of honor and dignity, making it as equal on the field as possible is the right way to go. And that's what these coaches have just agreed to. And I have an immense level of respect to them for doing that. That's fantastic. Scott Strickland, athletic director at Florida, said that he is actually, as of this announcement, not in favor of the Southeastern Conference moving to a 9-conference game schedule, not without guaranteed playoff access for the SEC. He said, quote, "That's hard for me. There's not a sport that our league competes in where less than half our members are not in the postseason except for one, and it happens to be the one we all pay the most attention to. Last year, 3 of our 16 teams were in the playoff. I think that's a problem systemically with the structure of what we're trying to do." So Lonzo asked me in the last segment, who's against this? Who's against this? Who would speak out and say a 5+11 model ain't it? And my gut answer, without having seen that quote that I just stumbled across from athletic director of the Florida Gators, Scott Strickland, was athletic directors and school presidents, boards of governors and commissioners and regents and whatever their names they take. Governing bodies in the college football landscape will be against it. Why? Well, at least in the SEC and Big Ten. Why? Because it unguarantees guarantees. And I'm not going to say takes money off the table, because you still do have to be one of the best 4 teams and get in to put that money on the table. But it does guarantee it's now going to be harder to get to the table. It does guarantee it's going to be harder to sit where all the big stack of dollar bills y'all are and reach out your hand and grab your fair share of them. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that fewer teams will go to the playoffs in a given year. It does guarantee that there is no guarantee that 4 teams will go every single year. And that means less money, not just for the schools themselves, but for everybody in the conference at large. So ADs and presidents and, frankly, conference commissioners are largely going to be against this. But y'all, I don't think there's going to be a football fan in America who's going to say this is a bad idea, unless you are the Rob Lowe of the SEC. You don't wear a team hat, you just wear an SEC logo on the hat. You don't wear a team jersey, you just wear a generic SEC jersey. If you are a SEC fan, but not a fan of a team within it, then I could see you being against this plan from the college football coaches in the conference. But I doubt there's very many of that guy. I doubt there's very many guys that go, yeah, I don't really have a team. I'm just a big SEC guy. I don't have a team in the conference. I'm just a fan of the conference. That's not a thing. So the answer is, I think fans are going to be largely in favor of this, because now everybody's got a shot, but the SEC and the Big Ten still have the best opportunity because they have the resources to get themselves in. ADs and presidents, authority figures will be against it. Those that are football guys first, not business guys first. All those dudes we mentioned, ADs, presidents, conference commissioners, they're all business guys first. They don't care about the numbers on the box score. They care about the numbers on the financial report. We care about the numbers on the box score first. Never once have we come in here on a Monday morning during football season and said, water cooler cheat sheet item number 1, the University of Florida earns $17 million this weekend. No. We come in here and we go, Florida won 17-14. Their quarterback threw for this, and their running back ran for that, and their receiver received for this. This is a football first format that has been proposed. And again, pat on the butt and a good game to every one of the coaches who had the rocks to say this is the way to do it, and pat on the butt in a good game to Greg Sankey for grabbing the mic and expressing that instead of locking it up out of fear that it would hurt his negotiation stance when we get to December 1st and it is time to vote on what that format should look like. I'm really happy to see this. All right, let's take a break. When we come back next hour, we will lead off with the Audio Blitz, the best audio we've picked up in the past 24 hours of the show. Before we get there, here's the best audio you're going to hear this morning. It's Lonzo's Sports Flash.
Yeah, we'll see if I can get through this. The Atlanta Braves dropped game 1 of a 3-game road set against Philadelphia 2-0. Spencer Strider went 4.2 innings, giving up 1 hit and 1 run. While striking out 7, the Braves had just 5 hits and left 10 runners on base. The New York Knicks are 1 game from elimination after a 130-121 Pacers win in Game 4. Tyrese Halliburton had a triple-double with 32 on 11 of 23 shooting with 15 assists and a dozen boards, and Pascal Siakam added 30 on 11 of 21. Game 5 is tomorrow night. The Edmonton Oilers have the Dallas Stars on the brink of elimination after a 4-1 win last night. The Oilers took a 2-1 lead after goals from Leon Draisaitl and Corey Perry and scored 2 empty netters in the final 2.5 minutes to seal the win. Hour number 3 of the Rob Brown Show is next. Come on.
Radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6986. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6986. That's 800-575-6986. Tax Relief Advocates.
So is that enough to make you bet?
I was just having that conversation with somebody a couple of minutes ago.
What, are you surprised I could hear it? Come on.
It is kind of quiet.
Yeah, but I'm
But for some reason, the computer volume impacts the on the recording in Cool Edit.
you should be able to pump it up, hopefully, without too much background noise. Background noise today comes from me. As I slowly die.
If you have any home repairs you need to take care of, check us out at repairclinic.com. If you need a world-class website or technology project, then I would highly recommend AmericanEagle.com. Call AmericanEagle.com at 773-NETWORK. That's AmericanEagle.com, 773-NETWORK.
Unique and unlike any other sports talk show. It's Bad MGM Tonight, Monday through Friday from 7 to 11, only on The Fan. Bad MGM Tonight is the red zone for casual and hardcore.
Whoa, scared of the squirrel. Wow.
For all of the night's games as they happen. Sides, totals, props, parlays, futures, and much more.
Oh, that squirrel's going over the top into the dugout. Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, he was on the fence. I was watching the game.
Are there no bats in that dugout?
He was out in the outfield fence. Here we go. Hour number 3. The Rob Brown Show carries on. Rob Brown, the great one, Lonzo, and you. Be a part of the radio program. 844-326-3663. That is the number to the Hub City Spartanburger text line. You call that number, you're getting on the air. You text that number. We will read it on the air, like Kane, who texted the show and said, excited to be listening to the best every sports show in the South. Your takes on the CFP are great, and I have nothing to comment on it. Lonzo is killing it on sports flashes and production. There you have it. Not just a compliment from Kane, but proof that I will read nice things about Lonzo off the text line.
Wow.
I needed it to be proven. And
Yeah,
now
well,
it's proven.
my favorite text that you don't read are Lonzo is right.
Well, I got to get him to read them. Man.
Well, okay. All right. Well, I haven't made many comments today because I'm dying over here. So, I mean, there's that.
You are falling apart.
I am.
It's noticeable.
It's either I didn't get rid of the last illness or it's a new one. I don't know, but I am coughing my head off. And at some point, if I can't stop coughing, you're just going to have to come around here and I'm just going to leave because it's. I hope you can't hear it on the show.
So far, so good.
Okay,
we'll see if you pull through.
Because it's more about I don't want to mess the show up.
Fair enough, and I appreciate that. It is 8:02 in the morning, time for the Audio Blitz, the best audio that we have picked up over the past 24 hours since the last time we did the Audio Blitz. Let's do a couple of them here. Stephen Vogt is the head coach, the manager of the Cleveland Guardians, former player, moved into the manager's office. Well, over the last couple of years, baseball has started doing this thing on broadcast that there's a part of me that loves it and a part of me that hates it, where they mic up players and managers during the game, and they actually do in-game interviews. This is something they did during spring training a few years ago, and there was a bump in viewership when they would do these things. It retained viewership because we as fans, we actually like to get to know the human side of the athletes and the coaches that we all follow. So they have started throwing mics on players and on coaches and doing in-game interviews. They were doing one on Mother's Day, and Stephen Vogt was the subject of the interview. They're live in the game. And one of the things that's been popping up recently is guest appearances in these live interviews.
Hi, Coach Stephen. This is the Pacific Northwest Force Assistant Coach Alyssa Vogt. I have a question for you. Did you remember to make dentist appointments for the kids? And did you put them on the calendar?
Oh, yeah, I did. I actually remembered to do that one. So I did carry my weight a little bit. So thank you, caller Alyssa. Happy Mother's Day to you. Love you so much.
Thank you guys both very much. Awesome. Thanks, Alyssa. We appreciate it.
Dude 100% forgot to do that. 100%. I'm going to tell you what happened. He got off that interview after she said, did you remember to schedule the kid's dentist appointment and put those dates on the calendar? I'm going to guarantee you that the second that interview was over, he called over one of his trainers. He's like, hey, kid, come here. He said, I need you to go right now, and I need you to get me those dentist appointments scheduled. I don't care if it's 7:30 at night. You figure out a way to get those things scheduled and put on our Google Calendar so that when I get home, I don't get busted up for lying to my wife on national television like I'm going to.
So you talked about celebrities jumping in on something. I thought it was Charlotte Flair. She sounds just like Charlotte Flair.
I'm going to say someone that Stephen Vogt is far more afraid of, his own wife. There's part of me that loves this because, again, I do love, and especially with baseball where there's so much downtime, even with the pitch clock, there's so much downtime where stuff's not happening. They did one with Francisco Lindor the other day, and they mic'd up his wife who was at the game, and she was ribbing him while he was on second. But there was also a moment during that in-game infield interview where there was a ground ball hit at Francisco Lindor that he had to try to turn to on. Now, she had just asked him like a second before that, and I should have pulled this audio too and played it, and I just didn't. But she asked him a second before that, what is tougher, turning a high-pressure double play or changing dirty poopy diapers? And Francisco was like, oh, turning double plays. I've been doing it my whole career. The dirty pooper diapers are new to me. I'm having to learn blah, blah, blah. And then a double play ball gets hit at him, and he, like, you can see he has to shift out of PR talking to my wife on national television mode and turn back into the baseball player. So as a baseball guy, as a get off my lawn guy, I'm like, Dad, I really love taking players out of the game. What happens if that's a hard hit ground ball, chance to turn to end the inning, and Lindor commits an error, just routine error in that spot? You know, Mets fans are going to be like, why are you distracting my guy? Why don't you have him locked in? But on the other hand, it was really entertaining.
I'll say, can't you talk and do other things at the same time?
I've never had to talk and also try to field a baseball coming at me at 92 miles an hour bouncing off the ground.
Are you ever afraid that your wife will call into this show and I will put up a fake name just so she can call you out?
Not really, but I also know that talking is this job. Right? Like, that is this job. So if she called in to give me hell on the radio, it would be part of the job. And I know you goobers would all be laughing your ass off at it. But no, that doesn't matter. But again, I don't have a 92 mile an hour rock headed at my face while I also try to make up an excuse for why I didn't put an appointment on the Google Calendar that we share.
I'll just say that words from over here fly pretty fast, maybe even faster than a 92 mile an hour fastball.
Yeah, words don't hit you in the nose and break it, though.
Oh,
They just make you feel that way.
I don't know. There are some days.
We have talked a number of times about the face of the league debate in the NBA, and one of the guys who has been propped up as a potential heir to that particular throne is Anthony Edwards. Now, I don't really have a lot of interest in giving this guy a bunch of airtime, but I'm going to here because I heard this take and I had a strong reaction, but I also recognize it is a very personal reaction. I wonder how many, if any of you, feel the same way. This, I'm sorry to you all, is Kendrick Perkins on what it takes to be the face of the league.
Bigger picture, right? You got to check the boxes when you're the face of the league. Yes, we know you got to have your signature shoe. You're going to be in commercials. You're going to have the highlights. You got to have the game. But you know what else you got to have? You got to be a role model, right? And things outside the lines matter. Now, if you go down the list of all the faces of the league in the history of the game, you look at Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Shaq, LeBron, Steph, what did they all have in common? While they was playing in the league, they all were family men. They all were married with kids. And if you think that don't play a role as far as the role model, this is facts. This is not something that I'm making. Hold on. But this is not something that I'm making up. Now, what happened to them after they retired? That's their business. But while they are playing or was playing, they were family men, married with kids.
K. Perk says if you want to be the face of the league, you have to be a role model. And part of being a role model is being a family man, having a wife, having kids, doing the whole white picket fence thing. I as a gut reaction, and again, I'm an open book to you guys. I'm the same guy on the air as I am off it. I do not have kids. I do not want kids. My wife and I decided we just do not want kids. Does that mean that, aside from the obvious complete lack of ability, does that mean I couldn't be the face of the league because I don't have? I think that's a dumb take.
I was going to say lack of ability as far as children goes, but I just want to say Kendrick Perkins, what he said was a lie. He said nothing happened. They were family men. Kobe was not, and
well, he was until he wasn't, and then he was again.
Yeah, a much publicized thing happened. So if you left that name out of there, then maybe I would have agreed to a point.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of the guys he mentioned, not all of them, but a lot of the guys that he mentioned, obviously it went on to have issues, like in that particular department.
In Kobe's case, it happened while he was playing, while he was, fairly young and at the height of his career. So I would have left that name out. I get why I don't want to say offended, but
no,
why
it's
you
not
don't
offended.
Like that,
I just disagree.
It almost comes across like you're offended.
No, it's not offended because, again, listen, I promise you.
Here's what you want as the face of the league. You want them to be non-political. You want them to appeal to both sides of the aisle, to every race, to every creed, to everything, which is hard to do, and most of those guys did that.
I would make the argument. So first off, 100% not offended because I promise you there's nothing that K-Perk or anybody else can say to me as somebody who has decided that I am not going to have children. I promise you can't say anything worse to me than my grandmother, my Irish Catholic grandmother, hasn't given me hell about, right? Like, it just can't happen. Number two, the only thing I would say if I was offended about anything was this concept that you can't be a role model unless you are family man with kids and doing all the right things. I disagree with that entirely as well. Like, I'm going to go Kurt Angle here. I don't consider myself a role model. But I would say of the multitude of dudes that I've worked with in this industry, yeah, I would put myself in the top percentile of good dudes in this industry. There's a lot of them who just ain't, but when they get on the air, they've got this fake persona, right? I think I'm a good person. I try to live my life the right way. So this concept that, well, if you don't have kids, you can't be a good person and you got to be a good guy to be the face of the league, I just think that's dumb. I think you've got to be a great basketball player. Only by that.
Okay.
Only by that.
Because your emotion is rising right now, showing how offended you really are.
Only because I have been called every name under the sun because I don't want kids, and that's a bad thing. Like, that's just a bad person, and I disagree with that take. I think you need a few things to be face of the league. Number one, I think you've got to be the best basketball player in the NBA. I don't think anybody who is considered second best can be face. You can be a face, but the face of the league has got to be the best basketball player. I think they've got to have success. Right? And that could be in the form of multiple MVPs, multiple championships, whatever. But you got to have some success. And I think Lonzo hit on the most important part, which is you've got to play to everybody. You got to follow the Jordan philosophy of Republicans buy sneakers too. You've got to be able to play it down the fence. Again, I could look at and make the LeBron James was face of the league for a hot minute, right?
Yeah.
Okay. LeBron James is very clearly not apolitical or politically disguised.
He was for a long period of time, and he lost a lot of people when he said you're next to the cop.
I wouldn't disagree.
He lost a lot of people there.
I wouldn't disagree. In fact, I would agree with that, which is probably why, also aside from the fact that he's 41 and he just ain't the same player he used to be, he has kind of taken a step back. I would make the argument that.
What an opportunity you had to play a certain clip, but you don't have it ready.
Yeah, I don't have it ready. The Steph Curry. Family guy, got kids. They're absolutely adorable. Doesn't really, outside of the, post-pandemic era where everybody in sports was outspoken about something, Steph doesn't really get all super involved, or at least not in a highly publicized way. I would argue that he's probably in that discussion of face of the league for the past few years. Ant-Man being next, I don't know a damn thing about where Ant-Man stands politically. I don't. I know who he is as a basketball player and not much else.
Good.
And that, to me, justifies him being in that discussion. All right, let's get one or two more in here before we take a break. The tush push discussion and debate from a week and a half or so ago with the owners' meetings. The NFL does not get the Packers, and now we know it's the NFL's mandate, of banning the tush push. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN was at those meetings and explained a little bit about what went on behind the scenes.
Late morning, NFL owners emerged from their meetings. They voted 22-10. The league thought it made a convincing argument here because their health and safety committee recommended that they ban the push play, pushing or pulling any ball carrier. The NFL competition committee did the same. So they were able to sway some votes. Back in March, they only got 16 to 32 votes. This time, 22. So closer. It is something they could revisit next March at the annual meetings, but right now it simply was not enough.
We said yesterday that it looks like it could be going out, but in fact it's not. So how are people reacting in Minnesota today?
Yeah, Matt, there was an element of surprise walking out of this building. In fact, some Eagles people were surprised. They walked out thinking that they didn't know what was going to happen. They could go either way, truly, and it was that close. But, you know, talking to some owners here in the building, the Eagles did a good job of potentially swaying some teams that could have been on the fence. I talked to Steelers president Art Rooney II, who said that Jason Kelce and his presence, him explaining the tush-push play, why it's effective, why it's not really an injury risk at all, could have swayed some teams. And so the Eagles came full frontal with a plan. Owner Jeffrey Lurie gave an impassioned speech to the crowd, basically saying, look, to be proficient at something only for it to be taken away would be unfortunate.
So Jeremy Fowler says that the competition committee made the argument, the health and safety committee made the argument, that the NFL made the argument, but it was the impassioned speech from Jeffrey Lurie, and it was the speech from Travis Kelce, who said, look, as the guy who was the spear point of this play for a few years, it is not a health and safety concern to us, the players. And that seems to be what pushed him over the edge. Now, we had the conversation that of the teams that voted not to ban the tush push, there were 10 of them. They needed 24 yeses. They got 22. Of the 10, there was only one team that voted not to ban who plays the Eagles for sure this year, and that was the Detroit Lions. Every other team on the Eagles schedule this year, including all three divisional opponents, did vote to ban the play. But it was the speech from Lurie and it was the speech from Kelce, according to Jeremy Fowler, that kind of pushed the ban out of the NFL for now. He did point out that they will likely revisit it at the March meetings at the conclusion of next season, and I'll keep it a buck. I have no idea if it gets banned then or not. I have no idea if that is going to be a multiple weeks worth of conversation topic like it was this time around. I think largely that will depend on if the Eagles are successful this season or not, whether it is defending or just winning the AFC or the NFC or winning the division or whatever. That is going to go a long way into determining if this comes up for conversation again. All I can say is I thought what Fowler said in the media, in the meat and potatoes of that take, which is Jeff Lurie got up there and said, for us to figure a thing out, become excellent at the thing, become proficient at the thing, execute the thing at a very high level, and then just have you guys say, and frankly, make up reasons why we can't do it anymore, and it's because y'all can't figure out how to stop it. That is outside the spirit of competition in the NFL. And while I hate that phrase in sports because I avoid sports cliches, and that's absolutely one of them, while I hate sports cliches, I feel like it is appropriately used that time.
I think it stays until the quarterback retires.
Because
he is the most effective guy at that.
I would argue the only effective guy.
Other guys they've I don't know if it's like 50% or maybe a little bit more. We saw Josh Allen couldn't do it.
Sure.
So I think it's more about the quarterback, and when he's gone, it will fade away.
You may not be wrong. I would also not be shocked in the next couple of years if we see a couple of college quarterbacks who are maybe, good, maybe even great, but not first-round draft pick caliber quarterbacks that just live on the squat rack to try to replicate that, right? Like, if I can go squat a Hyundai like Jalen Hurts can, and this play doesn't get banned, maybe I'm that next guy. I don't have to be an excellent thrower. Jalen Hurts is a good passer of the football. He's not elite by any stretch of the imagination, but that's not why Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts. Maybe another guy coming out of college who is a good passer of the football but not great goes, if I can figure out how to squat a Ford Bronco, then I could be the next tush-push QB. All right, when we come back, got a few more clips I'll play for you, and we will react to the Rob Brown Show rolls on. It is the Fan Upstate.
Say his name and he appears.
I believe in William Brady.
No, I was talking about. That Eagles quarterback that you just named.
Word. Be right back. flip-flops right now.
I have too many puddles for that. Ooh.
Got a few more clips to play for you here. Let's start with this one. The OG Triangle Media crew went and found an interesting little set of coincidences. They are, of course, coincidences and nothing more, but coincidences nonetheless. And I think that these coincidences may be something that you, Carolina fans, may find very interesting. Where did my mouse go to click the dadgum button?
The Panthers have opened up the season with the Jaguars twice, including in 2003 and 2015. Now, if you want to take that another step, in 2002, Ohio State won the national championship.
Okay.
The Panthers finished with a losing record. In 2003, the Panthers opened with the Jaguars. The Panthers go to the Super Bowl. In 2014, Ohio State wins the national championship.
I see what you're doing.
The Panthers finished with a losing record.
Yeah.
2015, the Panthers opened the season with the Jaguars. The Panthers go to the Super Bowl. 2024, Ohio State wins the national championship. The Panthers finish with a losing record. 2025, the Panthers open the season with the Jaguars. Who am I to argue with this astronomical?
Coincidence was the last word there that I cut off.
You know, you can find those things everywhere. And what made them go look for that and do it that? Are they Panther fans?
Don't think so. This is something that I have seen as a discussion around a lot of NFL circles. Listen, we've talked about this. We are pattern-seeking creatures. Our success as a species for the last 500,000-ish years was because we are capable of recognizing patterns and then making predictions that lead to favorable outcomes for the species based on recognizing those patterns and reacting to them. We love patterns as people, and so we always go looking for these weird little coincidences. And I think that's why some people are very interested in all of this. It's just because that is now a pattern that has happened multiple times and is set up to happen again. So my question is, the Carolina Panthers are 80-1 to win the NFC. Not win the Super Bowl, but win the NFC and go to the Super Bowl. Could I interest you in a beer money bet for Carolina to win the NFC in Dave Canales' second year at an 80-1 payout?
As a co-host on a nationally syndicated betting show, I am just curious if you're willing to drop some cash on this.
This is, for me, without a doubt, it is 100% a coincidence. This is 100% not something that I would make a decision that is actually important to my life in based on, the last time that I wore a blue shirt and got a job offer, it led to whatever, and I'm wearing a blue shirt today. You know, I would never let that affect my day-to-day actually important decision-making process. I'm absolutely throwing a six-pack's worth on this. If I throw $10 at this bet and it pays out 80-1 and the coincidence strikes again, that's an $800 payout at the end of the season. Yeah, I'm going to throw a tenner at this and hope that history repeats itself again because I would then have money.
It doesn't mean much to your paycheck, but, you could, buy lunch or something with it.
Buddy, I drop a tenner and win 800. Daddy's buying more than lunch. Mama's getting taken out to a nice steak and seafood dinner that night, without a doubt. All right, let's get one or two more in here before we get up out of here. Here is one. Let's do two food takes real quick back to back. Scott Van Pelt and Stanford Steve had a debate on the SVP pod the other day.
There was some breakfast joint commercial, and I thought it was important that I share with people because this is how Twitter works. I said, I really like waffles, and I really don't like pancakes. Naturally, people have their feelings. How do you feel about pancakes, Steve, versus waffles?
It's been years since I've had either. I am straight eggs.
You don't like waffles?
I prefer waffles over pancakes.
I just like the crunchy of the waffle. You can go ahead and cook that son of a gun. Like well-done waffles. Excellent. Whereas I find flapjacks, I am anti-pancake. I don't enjoy them. I won't eat them. Make them for the kids. They love them. I like waffles.
Waffles are more versatile because, to your point, with the pockets, you can make them how you want them is with how much syrup you put on.
Yep.
And that's my point. I'm not a big maple syrup guy. And my other problem is when you go out to breakfast, waffles and pancakes sometimes, like, I want my food hot, and waffles and pancakes feel like they could have been sitting there a little bit, and they're not really hot.
Do you have a strong position on that debate?
I gotta say, I didn't care either way. One thing about waffles, they're chewy, so if you're in a mood for chewy, pancakes usually are not. But First Watch came out with a pumpkin pancake that is the most delicious pancake I've ever had in my entire life. It's seasonal. I'm not pumpkin spice guy, but I'm looking forward to the return of that pumpkin pancake. Hopefully it comes back, and that would sway me to the pancake side.
I am down for a novelty cake or two. I am down. I mean, I am absolutely the grown-up that will 1,000% get myself a chocolate chip pancake if that is on the menu, because shut up, I'm going to die one day. I'm going to enjoy the ride to that point. I will say that if you give me the option between the two, I'm probably going waffle every time. I think there's probably a little bit more versatility with the pancake. I believe that you can do the pancake in different ways. I actually have a recipe for a pancake pocket that I learned how to make not too long ago, where I actually form a pancake as like a Euro kind of shell, and then you can put eggs and sausage and bacon and whatever inside of it, and I think that's great. But at the end of the day, I just feel like the waffle carries a little bit more weight to it, and on top of that,
yeah. But the thing is, you got to work more for a waffle, because you have to work your fork a little bit harder to get through the waffle. You don't have to do that with the pancake. So I'm going to go just for effort, not having to put as much effort, and pancake or waffle is kind of a lazy breakfast food. I got to go with pancake because, and you got a better chance of eating the pancake before it gets cold than you do the waffle because of how much work you got to put into the waffle.
I get that take as somebody who loves crawfish more than most other foods. I'm also a dude who's not afraid to work a little extra if I know the food payoff is going to be worth it. I will say the context of this discussion for me is if I go out to get breakfast. Because if I'm at the crib making my own breakfast, I'm not making either one of these things. If I'm going to fire up some sort of appliance to make a breakfast, I'm throwing down some sausage, bacon, and eggs on the stovetop and making myself an all-American. All right, real quick. There has been a discussion on the internet for a number of years now surrounding a very contentious question, and that is a hot dog a sandwich? Does a hot dog meet the qualification and standards to be called a sandwich, or is it stand alone? And this conversation has divided the nation. And the people who are, yes, it's a sandwich, and the people who are, no, it is not a sandwich, it's a hot dog, stand in violent opposition to each other. Came across this clip where a couple of the boys were rolling around just goofing off, having a good time, and this conversation came up. And I thought, what an interesting point. I don't know that it has swayed me to one side or the other, but I have not heard anybody else bring up this point on the hot dog v. sandwich debate.
A hot dog is not a sandwich. Why not? Because a hot dog without a bun is still a hot dog.
First off, can I just say that there is not much on planet Earth that makes me happier than the fellas just being the fellas and erupting because dude made a good hot dog is not a sandwich debate point. But for the record, it did kind of hit me for like a second where I was like, okay, all right.
See, I don't know. At what point does the wiener become a hot dog? Because it's a wiener. And once it's heated, does it become a hot dog? Or is it, I mean, when does the transformation happen?
See, I don't think there is one.
Because I think the scientific term, the technical term, the thing that it was originally created for in Germany was a wiener.
A Frankfurter. To me, the hot dog is the hot dog from the moment it is formed into a hot dog. When they grind up all the hot dog stuff and they put it into that casing and they spin it around on the ends and they make it a hot dog, it's a hot dog. And it doesn't matter if you eat it by itself, if you cut it up and you put it into beans, if you put it on a slice of white bread, if you put it on a hoagie roll, if you put it on a brat bun, on a hot dog bun. Doesn't matter if you go with chili and cheese. It doesn't matter if you go ketchup and mustard, relish and onions. None of that matters. The dog is a dog regardless of what is around it, and therefore it is not a sandwich.
Quick question. So yesterday, we had leftover brats from Memorial Day.
Brat's not a dog.
Oh no, give me a moment here. So I took the bratwurst, I put them in a tortilla shell and made them into burritos. Were they a burrito or were they a bratwurst?
I mean, if it was a hot dog, I would say that's still a hot dog. It's just a differently, uniquely prepared hot dog, right? If I take a hot dog and I slice it up and I put it into a big pile of baked beans, which was a delicacy for Rob Brown as a child, the old Franks and beans, that's still a hot dog. Now it's baked beans with a hot dog in it. So I think my man's got a good point here. I think he's got a good point. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back here in a minute. Got a few more bits of sound that are actually sports related that we will respond to, as well as get back into that conversation about Greg Sankey and the SEC head football coaches. Lane Kiffin had a take we will address, and we might even talk a little college baseball as regionals are just 2 days away. The Rob Brown Show is on the Fan Upstate.
By the way, bratwurst burrito, pretty good. Just want to say. Wrapped it in American cheese, put it inside a tortilla, put some salsa inside, and then sprinkled taco cheese, which is it's a real thing, taco cheese. So I put that on top, threw it in the air fryer, boom. Because dudes can make food out of anything, just about.
Up to the minute, upstate traffic. The southbound side of 85 has relieved itself and moving along pretty good between Spartanburg and Greenville. The issue has moved to the northbound side where there's a crash at mile marker 45 before South Pleasantburg Road. It has traffic tied up back to 185. There's also a crash tying things up 276 Lawrence Road between 25 Whitehorse. From the News Talk 98.9 WORD Traffic Center, I'm Bill Brooks on the Fan Upstate.
Attention taxpayers. If you or your business owe the IRS back taxes or have years of unfiled tax returns, the IRS has greenlighted billions of dollars in tax relief to those facing financial hardship through its tax relief initiatives. If you have a delinquent tax problem and possibly facing wage garnishment, liens, levies, audits, or already in a payment plan, you may now qualify for significant relief. Qualifying and enrolling in this program could stop all collections, settle your tax problem, and may even reduce what you owe by up to 99%. Call the hotline at TaxPro USA to see if you qualify by dialing 800-797-5055. If you or your business owe at least $10,000 in back taxes to the IRS or state, you can now get the help that you need during these hard economic times. Call TaxPro USA to get your free tax assessment to see what you qualify for by dialing 800-797-5055. 800-797-5055. That's 800-797-5055.
The big focus in America today is on your health, and more people are looking beyond pills and steroids and surgery. Hey, it's Charlie James for QC Kinetics. At QC Kinetics, they've been on the cutting edge of this medical revolution since 2018. Using regenerative medicine, they've helped tens of thousands of people get lasting joint pain relief using natural treatments that harness your body's own healing power. The truth is, regenerative medicine used to be an alternative treatment, but now it's mainstream. Their well-respected protocols include potent and powerful cellular-level treatments to revitalize and restore damaged joint tissue. They're not masking the pain. They're going after the very source of it. Yes, you can say goodbye to that chronic pain and live your best life. Learn more about this revolutionary treatment and get a free consultation. Call QC Kinetics now at 864-448-3772. That's 864-448-3772 in Greenville and in Nashville. 864-448-3772 QC Kinetics.
At Hub City Spark Burgers, every game's a full-course feast for fun. Burgers, baseball, and memories. Grab a seat and dig in, where fun is always on the menu. Grab your tickets now at HubCitySparkBurgers.com.
I still got to get over there for a game. I can't believe I haven't yet.
The American Management Association, a company focused on the management training skills needed to enhance the careers of business professionals. We did our research when it came
How long is their season?
companies for website development and chose American
I mean, I'm assuming it's regular length, which would put it running through September.
Minor league go as long as major league.
Close. Let's see.
Immediate increases in site and web revenue. If you're in need of managerial effectiveness and success, visit our website at mns.org. If you're in need of a website that provides an unparalleled
September 7th is the last game.
So you're saying you have time?
Yeah. But when we get into July, August, it is night games only.
I think you'd be okay with the heat. You're from Florida.
Feel the heat. A few minutes ago, I asked you the question with the remarkable coincidences that have shaped up this year. Twice now, the Carolina Panthers have opened a season with the Jacksonville Jaguars, coming off of a losing season the year before, and done so in the same year that the Ohio State Buckeyes became national champions. The two times that it happened previously, the Carolina Panthers went to the Super Bowl the next year. Both times, long shot odds to make that happen. Now, we had a little fun with that a couple of segments ago where I said, are you willing to throw a beer money bet at 80-1 odds that Carolina makes it to the Super Bowl and renews that set of coincidences one more year again? Well, now let's talk a little bit of Panther football. Rashad Beard will be by tomorrow at this exact time, as a matter of fact, to catch up and talk some Panther football. But while we wait for Rashad tomorrow, we can talk about it here. OTAs are underway for the Carolina Panthers. Day one taking place yesterday. Obviously, we're not going to see a lot out of the gate. For most of these guys, it's the first time that they have done a full team workout since the season came to its conclusion last year. So the first couple of days are just about getting out there, doing some conditioning, getting back into rhythm and routine, getting your chemistry and your timing back, yada, yada, yada. But there are some interesting things that are discussions about what Carolina is going to look like this year. One of the things that both Bryce Young, my special baby boy, BY, and his head coach Dave Canales said, and I think that this is important. I think this is something that I have leaned on for the past year. When I was the only Bryce Young defender in, it felt like, the upstate, but certainly the only one on the radio.
Maybe the world.
Maybe, no, not the world. Rashad was with me.
Yeah, it was, okay. Not in your way.
As one of the very, 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 very limited number of Bryce Young defenders over the past couple of years, there is one crux to that argument that I have said a few times is a reason not to write off Bryce Young. And that obviously is the coaching carousel that he has gone through since he showed up. Well, this offseason is different than the last offseason for Bryce Young, because for the first time in his NFL career, BY gets to come into an OTA and offseason workouts with his team not having to learn a brand new system, not having to learn a brand new language, not having to process an entirely new playbook at a point in time that is about team building, chemistry building, getting on the same page, ingraining the offense into the guys who are new to the team, rookies, free agents, trade acquisitions, etc., etc., etc. BY, as QB1, gets to walk out onto the field in OTAs and already know the playbook, already know the game plan, already know the language, already know the lingo, already know what the offense is he's going to be running. And obviously, there are going to be some wrinkles that are going to be added. We'll get to that here in just a moment from now. But by and large, BY comes into the season knowing what the Carolina Panthers are, knowing what the Carolina Panther offense is going to be, knowing what he is going to be. So this offseason for BY is not about building and learning. It is about tweaking and perfecting. This is interesting. It is interesting to me because Dave Canales has already spoken on this a little bit. When asked about the differences in the Panther offense from last year to this year, Dave Canales said after OTA practice yesterday, quote, "It's subtle changes. I think we have a great foundation of things. That was the first year, which was to get the core established, to get the words and all those things in place, and then some adjustments based on our skill, the skill position players, the runners, the receivers, JT, and then just kind of becoming us and honing in on some of the things we saw in the self-scout. Like, these are concepts we feel really confident with, that we run really well. We can do the adjustments off of it. So now it's about adding little tools, things that Bryce can do at the line of scrimmage, things that he can do to tweak and change based on what the defense is doing." And of course, obviously, that is step one of the process, which must be trusted. BY, 10 touchdowns, both rushing and passing combined in the final 3 weeks of the season with no turnovers in that time. He took over as the starter in week 8. He had 26 big-time throws, according to the Pro Football Focus metric, if you utilize that, ties him for most in the league from week 8 to the end of the season with Joey B. Joe Burrow. And most importantly, of those weeks, he led the team on game-winning or tying drives 6 times out of 9 weeks. So the goal this year is, how do we get ourselves in a position where we don't need game-winning or tying drives 6 out of 9 weeks? How do we create a situation where we're putting other people into the role of needing game-winning or game-tying drives? It's not us every time. BY after OTAs yesterday, quote, "I think it's just being able to build off the foundation we laid last year. Around this time last year, obviously it's a new system, new offense, so we're getting the basics. We're ironing out the day one first stuff and just the basics of the offense. Now, me too, we get to start so much further ahead. A lot of returning guys, a lot of familiar faces, and that's a lot of kudos to the guys coming in, the free agents, the rookies that are coming in. Let's start at a master's level. Let's make sure that we're more advanced. And for them, this is their first time in the system, and you wouldn't be able to tell by a lot of guys. That speaks to their hard work, and it's exciting to see us start a lot more ahead this year. I think that's within the system. There's so many wrinkles and so many little things that build off of each other that the coaching staff has done a great job and has had a lot of success throughout the years. Obviously, in Seattle, they had a ton of time together, and you could see a lot of stuff year 2, 3, 4, and there's a lot of stuff that we're able to talk about and mention last year that was all right. I don't know if we're there, and for us, it's exciting to be able to now have an opportunity to grow towards that and start a lot further so we can reach those little wrinkles. There's definitely a lot of stuff that we are excited about. Xavier Legette spoke out. He kept his short and sweet. He said about Bryce Young, quote, "I feel like he's still carrying that flame from throughout the middle of the season to the end of last year," end quote. Look, forget the coincidences, and that's all a fun little conversation that makes for great, 60-second social media clips. That's all well and good and fun. And sure, I'm going to put a 10 spot down on Carolina to reach the Super Bowl, because if it doesn't hit, I'm out $10 and I had a fun little ticket for admission for a fun ride for a few weeks. And if it does hit, Daddy's taking mama out to a good dinner and buying himself a very nice bottle of bourbon at the end of the year. Put all that to the side and let's just talk football. You're talking about a cat who for the final 9 weeks of the season went on game-winning or tying drive 6 times. In the final 3 weeks of the season was responsible directly for 10 touchdowns, 0 turnovers in that span. This is why I've said a number of times, wins and losses aren't a quarterback stat. Look at the quarterback metrics. By every quarterback stat, every quarterback metric, we are talking about passing accuracy. We are talking about explosive plays. We are talking about precision. We are talking about touchdown to turnover ratio. We are talking about quarterback metrics. By every quarterback metric, not only was Bryce Young better at the end of last year, but by every quarterback metric, despite what the record would say, by every quarterback metric, Bryce Young was one of the best 6 quarterbacks in the league during the second half of the season last year. One of the best in the league in terms of completion percentage, in terms of turnovers, in terms of touchdown to turnover ratio, in terms of yards gained on the ground, yards gained through the air. One of the best 5, I would say 5 to 7 quarterbacks in the NFL. And as Rashad Beard and I have both beaten you over the head with through the end of last year and coming through this offseason. That includes having Xavier Legette dealing with the dropsies down the stretch last year. That includes your ex-wide receiver, Jalen Coker, being a true rookie. That includes all of these different hindrances to the progression of Bryce Young last year, all of which are out of the way now. Well, I say all of which are out of the way. We'll see if XL's got the hands back. If XL's got the hands back, that's a game changer. We will see if Jalen Coker in year 2 is a little bit more comfortable as the X. Tetairoa McMillan getting drafted out of Arizona is a guy that the draft scouts absolutely fell in love with. We will see if he is him, as so many of them have argued that he is. If Tet McMillan does become that Johnny Wilson big end zone monster that as long as you throw it within the school bus in any given direction, he can contort the body and go get the rock. If all of these things work out, how are you not optimistic? I think it's still fair to ask questions about the defense. You did add the 2 edge rushers. We wanted edge rushers out of this draft. You got 2 out of them, not just 2 out of them, but you got 2 Southeastern Conference edge rushers, 2 edge rushers with numbers behind them, 2 edge rushers coming off of teams at A&M and Tennessee that were very productive as passing defenses last year, and that, as you all know, starts with the rush. So there are reasons to be maybe not as optimistic about the defense as the offense, but there are reasons to be optimistic about the defense. But I think it is the offense this year that you have to be the most optimistic about. Again, final 6 weeks of the season last year, Bryce Young was one of the best 6 or 7 quarterbacks in the NFL. That is statistically speaking. In terms of the actual quarterback stats, not wins and losses, which is not a quarterback stat, but in terms of quarterback metrics, Bryce Young was one of the best in the game for the final stretch of the season last year. And I don't have any reason to think that with an offseason where he has the same head coach, where he has the same offensive coordinator, where he has the same playbook, where he has the same wide receiver core, with the exception of one addition of the most sought-after wide receiver in this draft, not named Travis Hunter, yeah, I'm optimistic about this team. Told Ryan and PJ last night, I'm betting the over. Already have bet the over. Carolina's win total was 6.5. That was 6.5 with a minus 140 to the over. Now, if you're not a big gambling guy, that number didn't mean anything to you, but let me tell you what it does mean in the eyes of a big gambling guy. Minus money means a favorite. Minus money means the bigger that minus number is, the more likely that thing is to happen. So if they put it on a number that they're like, well, 50% it goes over, 50% it goes under, ordinarily the odds for those 2 bets are going to match. They're going to be like minus 110 to each. Right? Minus 110 over, minus 110 over, under. That means they think it could go either direction. If a bet is minus 140 one direction, that means they think it's more likely it's going to be that direction. In this case, the over than the under. Vegas thinks 6.5 wins is happening for Carolina.
Because they're smart enough to look at that defense, and you got to wonder, Does the personnel match the scheme that the defensive coordinator is trying to play? I don't know. Never been a fan of the guy. And if the Panthers lose the first 5 or 6 games, I hope they don't. If they do, they get rid of the defensive coordinator. Because as good as things look on paper for the offense, they don't look nearly as good on the defense. And Bryce Young could have an MVP type year, but if the defense plays like it's been playing, it's not going to matter. They're going to have about the same amount of wins as they had last year.
I think a lot of that is going to come down to, is the offense scoring points? Is the offense gaining yardage? Is the offense maintaining drives? Do they have long time of possession? Are they keeping the other offense on the bench? Like, all of these factors will go into that. I don't disagree, and I would even say that this year, more than any other year of his career, I think it is important that Ejiro Evero matches his system to the players, not the other way around. Right? And I think we will know within, as Lonzo said, those first 5 weeks. Honestly, I've already said those first 3 weeks. Carolina goes 2-3, they got a good shot. If they can go 3-5 in the first 5 weeks, that's a playoff team. That's a playoff team if they start 3-5. But
especially
it will
in the NFC South for sure.
It will, because they only have one NFC South game in that first 5 games. And then they don't play another one until like week 12 or something dumb like that. So you're going to get your
If I recall,
metrics.
they play some pretty good teams, though, in the first little bit.
They do.
And if they are able to win those games, then they should be able to beat the teams in the South.
2 out of 3 to open the season, 3 out of the 5 to open the season. If 3 out of the 5 to open the season go into the win category, this team will win that division, and I will make that bet. But right now, beer money bet on them to win the NFC, because screw you guys, I think it's awesome. Back after this, Lonzo about to seduce you emotionally with this Sports Flash.
Only if you're seduced by someone that probably needs NyQuil. The New York Knicks are 1 game from elimination after a 130-121 Pacers win in Game 4. Tyrese Halliburton had a triple-double with 32 and 11 of 23 shooting, with 15 assists and a dozen boards, and Pascal Siakam added 30 on 11 of 21. Game 5 is tomorrow night. The Edmonton Oilers have the Dallas Stars on the brink of elimination after a 4-1 win last night. The Oilers took a 2-1 lead after goals from Leon Draisaitl and I know, and Corey Perry, and scored 2 empty netters in the final 2.5 minutes to seal the win. The Atlanta Braves dropped Game 1 of a 3-game road set against Philadelphia 2-0. Spencer Strider went 4.2 innings, giving up 1 hit and 1 run, while striking out 7. The Braves had just 5 hits and left 10 runners on base. That's not good. Hour number 4 of The Rob Brown Show coming up next. Yay. I'm about to run out of water.
Financial safety net for your family can be tough, but with term life insurance through Ethos, you can have peace of mind that they can pay the mortgage and other bills if something happens to you. With coverage in as little as 10 minutes, all online, Ethos finds your best rate across their multiple trusted carriers. Some policies as low as $1 a day billed monthly. And even in uncertain times, your term life insurance rates and payout don't change. Get your free quote at ethos.com/life. That's ethos.com/life.
The Rob Brown Show rolls on. It is the Fan Upstate. Rob, Lonzo, you. The Hub City Spartanburger text line open. 844-326-3663 is the number. 844-FANFONE. You can text that number and get your text read on the air. Like the texter who said, does French toast enter the breakfast foods conversation? Not only does it enter, it's gold medal. It's gold medal. French toast is easily an S-tier breakfast food. Now, got to be made well. Got to be made right. I've had some bad French toast, but you get somebody who makes that good French toast where the bread is good and soggy, but it still has that fluffiness to it, that cut it with a fork fluffiness.
Do you prefer like brioche for your French toast?
Don't care.
It does. One thing it shouldn't be is too eggy.
I completely concur. And to have it be too eggy ruins the French toast. So it's got to be a little eggy, but not too eggy. Bread's still got to maintain that fluffiness, that thoroughly. I will tell you that the Madre used to make French toast with Texas toast. I'm going to tell you right now, Texas toast underappreciated.
Cinnamon?
What's that?
Cinnamon?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, and a little vanilla extract when you put the whole thing together. Untouchable. It's an S-tier breakfast food without a doubt. Texture said, bring back Tebow for the tush push. Dude is built like a tank. That is from Twisted Whisker. Twisted Whisker, appreciate it. Welcome to the Armada, bud. Good to have you. Look, I've said a number of times, I think Tim Tebow could have been a long-time NFL quarterback. I just think Tim Tebow was, respectfully, prideful. Which is obviously against everything that we know about Tim Tebow the person. Hell, everything I know about Tim Tebow the person. I've spent more time with Tim Tebow than anybody that's worked on this radio station. Good dude. Not a prideful guy. But I think in this case he was. I think he wanted to prove that he was a traditional NFL quarterback. And the reality is, why would you not take advantage of the physical gifts that you have? And I think if he would have been that guy, he would have been in the league for a very, very long time. But he didn't want to. And I think it cost him probably another 4 or 5 years in the NFL career where he could have been Taysom Hill. He could have been Taysom Hill before Taysom Hill was Taysom Hill. He could have been that guy, and he didn't want to make the move. He didn't want to make the move, which, again, his decision, his call, but I think he cost himself. But that's another discussion for another time. 844-326-3663 is the number to text the show. We'll read them on the air. You can also call that number and jump on the air. You can tweet me at The Rob Brown Show. You can tweet the great one, Lonzo, at Lonzo on Word. You can get up at everybody at The Fan Upstate. So, ESPN has put out a ranking of all 136 FBS quarterback situations ahead of the 2025 season. The reason that I bring this up is because of a conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago on the show. It is never too early. I mean, it is, but it's never too early to start 2026 NFL draft talk. All right? We're only 11 months away from the NFL draft. Never too early.
Be here before you know it.
And one of the discussions that we had was about the quarterbacks at both Clemson and South Carolina. I've made the prediction a couple of times. I think it is a realistic possibility, and I would even be willing at this point to say that I think it is a probability that the state of South Carolina will have not one but 2 Heisman Trophy finalists this year. I think it is very possible, dare I say probable, that both Cade Klubnik and Lenora Sellers are sitting in the Downtown Athletic Club at the conclusion of this season, waiting to find out if either one of them wins the Heisman Trophy. And if that does happen, then obviously it is going to mean at that point that these 2 teams had a pretty good run of it. Last night, PJ Glasser on BetMGM Tonight asked me, Rob Brown, if I gave you $100 of free bets, but I told you you had to put them on either Clemson over 9.5 wins or South Carolina over 7.5 wins, where would you put that number. I went and I looked. Clemson's win total is set at 9.5 at a -110 both directions. South Carolina's win total is set at 7.5, but there is a little extra juice to the under at -115. As I talked about with the NFL conversation in the last segment, when it comes to those numbers, minus means favorite. It is more likely to be an outcome. And when they have a 50-50 read, those two lines are usually going to be very similar, like a -110 in either direction, over or under. If there is a bigger minus money number to one side or the other, or if one side has a plus, that means they believe it's less likely to happen. And the further apart those two numbers are, the more dramatically they believe one side is more or less likely to happen. South Carolina's win total right now set at 7.5, and they have it at -115 to the under, -105 to the over, which means that they believe South Carolina is going to end this season as a 7-win football team. That is the belief of BetMGM as it stands right now. We've already done the schedule breakdown, opening with Virginia Tech on August 31st. Then it's SC State, Vandy at home, on the road at Mizzou, home against Kentucky, at LSU, home for 2 games, Oklahoma and Alabama, at Ole Miss, at Texas A&M, back home for Coastal, and then wrapping up the season, obviously, with Clemson on the 29th of November. So, we have talked about the fact that if these two teams hit their overs, it's largely going to be because of the quarterback at both schools. So ESPN ranks the college football quarterback situation and do so into tiers, because if you're going to rank things in tier, or if you're going to rank things on the internet, nowadays we don't do power rankings, we do it in tiers. You have S tier, superior, then A, B, C, D, E, F tier, all the way down to F tier, which is the failed tier. Well, they have tier 1, S tier, top of the class. They have 11 players in the rank. Those 11 players those schools are LSU with Garrett Nussmeier and Michael Van Buren Jr., Oklahoma with John Mateer, Michael Hawkins Jr., and Whit Neubauer, Penn State with Drew Aller and Ethan Grunkmeyer, Clemson with Cade Klubnik and Chris Vizina, South Carolina with Lenora Sellers and Air Nolan. Now, they do go and they put a few more guys into tier 1B. They have Cade Klubnik and Lenora Sellers both not just in tier 1, but in tier 1A. When it's all said and done, tier 1B, they have DJ Lagway at Florida, Carson Beck at Miami, and Arch Manning at Texas. In tier 2, Arizona State with Sam Levitt, Baylor with Sawyer Robertson, Georgia Tech with Haynes King, Iowa State with Rocco Becht, which is a great quarterback name. Tier 3, they have Arkansas, Duke, Kansas, Louisville, Navy, SMU, TCU, Texas Tech, and Vanderbilt behind Diego Pavia. So just to kind of give you an indication of what these tiers shape up like for ESPN. This is very interesting. ESPN puts a couple of facts in here that come into the discussion. They point out that in the playoff era, 8 quarterbacks have racked up at least 4,100 yards and 43 touchdowns while having 7 or fewer turnovers. 8 quarterbacks have done it. One of them was last year's Cade Klubnik. The other 7, 5 Heisman winners and 2 finalists. And of the other 7, every single one of them was selected within the first 10 picks of the NFL draft the next year. They go on to point out that no quarterback had more touchdown passes on throws of 20 yards or more last season than Klubnik, who had 16 of it. His line on deep balls, 47% completion percentage, 16 touchdowns, 3 picks, averaging 16.6 yards per attempt. In the playoff era, 14 players have posted a line of 4,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, 9 yards per pass, and no more than 10 turnovers. That group includes 13 players selected in the first 15 picks of the draft, 6 Heisman winners and 8 more finalists. Cade Klubnik's in that group. Mateer missed that club by only 36 yards last year. And then they go on to LaNorris Sellers. Last year, weeks 1 through 9, a 51.7 QBR, 5 passing touchdowns to 4 interceptions, and 6.91 yards per pass. In weeks 10 through the bowl game, those numbers jumped. QBR in the first 5 weeks, or first 9 weeks, 51.7. In weeks 10 through the bowl game, QBR of 81.4. In the first 9 weeks, 5 passing touchdowns. Week 10 through the bowl game, 13. In the first 9 weeks, 4 picks, same number for week 10 through the bowl game. And in the first 9 weeks, 6.9 yards per pass. In week 10 through the bowl game, 9.85 yards per pass. LaNorris Sellers, at the end of last year, had almost, not quite the same, but almost the same trajectory as Bryce Young did at Carolina. A trajectory that has NFL fans talking about whether or not BY will be in that group of elite quarterbacks this year, if he has done enough to get himself into that conversation. LaNorris Sellers had the same trajectory as a college quarterback last year. And OBT Dubs, let's also point out that the end of the schedule last year was not an easy one for the Gamecocks. We obviously know that they ended the year with the Clemson Tigers, and we know how big of a game LaNorris Sellers had in that run. But this includes the Illinois game, where he did not have a full complement of players. That includes against number 23 Mizzou, on the road at the same Vanderbilt team that beat Alabama, and at home against Texas A&M, all in that mix where all of a sudden those numbers started to come out. So when I said a week and a half ago that in looking at 2026 NFL draft odds, and let's keep it a buck, I looked at those draft odds not because I'm ready to start making predictions about the 2026 NFL draft. We got a lot of sports between here and 11 months from now. I looked at those odds because those odds, I think, give you a pretty good indication of what people are expecting out of the big names in college football this year. And Cade Klubnik and LaNorris Sellers were both in the list of guys who have odds on the board right now to be selected number 1 overall in the draft next year. And I know that that is not a crazy stat. Because, again, last night, 8:20 p.m. was on BetMGM Tonight. I'm there every Tuesday if you want to check it out. Ryan Horvat, big college football guy. I'll be hosting BetMGM Tonight this Friday with Horvey. And Horvat loves when I show up because, hell yeah, we'll talk college football in May. Of course, never too early to talk CFB. Yeah. So we got to having this conversation last night when PJ said, $100, who you betting? South Carolina over 7.5, Clemson over 9.5. And my answer was, give me 50 on both. And in my answer to that, in my explanation for that, I did point out the belief that the state of South Carolina could very well have 2 Heisman Trophy finalists in New York City. Now, again, LaNorris Sellers is a little bit down the odds list, but not that far. Arch Manning is your Heisman favorite at 7-1. Cade is second, tied with Garrett Nussmeier. Both of those cats are 9-1. Julian Sayin, 13-1. Jeremiah Smith, 13-1. Drew Aller, 16-1. DJ Lagway, 17-1. Dante Moore, 18-1. LaNorris Sellers, it's 22-1. He has the 9th best odds in the country to win, not show up, win the Heisman. Those odds are better than Carson Beck, John Mateer, Austin Simmons, Sam Levitt, CJ Carr, Kevin Jennings, who was a failed drive away from the ACC title last year, Gunnar Stockton, Miller Moss, Ryan Williams. These are all names you're going to hear and are going to be talked about at length in the football season this year. He's got better odds to win the Heisman than all of them. So I've already made the call. I think there's 2 South Carolina football players sitting on the stage at the Downtown Athletics Center for the Heisman Trophy celebration at the end of the year. And I think because of that, these 2 teams are both good bets to hit the over cash on their season results. With that being said, The numbers back it up, too. The numbers back it up for Cade Klubnik, who has a stat line that only 8 quarterbacks have hit in the playoff era. And of those 8 quarterbacks, 7 of them were Heisman finalists. 5 of them won the Heisman. All 7 of them were drafted inside the top 10 picks of the draft the next year. The only guy who has not accomplished those things is Cade Klubnik, who obviously, if he hits that stat line again this year, will absolutely be at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. And then there's Lenore Sellers, who, like I said, similar trajectory in season to BY last year. BY is being talked about in the NFL circles. Lenore Sellers being talked about in the college football circles, to the point that last night in this discussion, Ryan Horvath said, I will take a bet right now that Lenore Sellers is the number 1 overall draft pick in the NFL draft next year. That's how good he thinks this cat's going to be. Ryan Horvath has no reason to blow smoke at you guys. I've told you, I will criticize your team. I will bash your team when they deserve to be criticized and bashed. I do not pull punches when I am trying to objectively analyze and break down your teams for you. I do not kiss the booty of any school in our market. I do not hate on any school in our market. It's not my style. I'm going to be honest, objective about you as I can, even though it gets me in trouble with my wife. She's a Gamecock. I'm going to be honest with you. But I still get accused of it, especially when I do the national show, right? I say stuff like that about Lenoris and about Cade Klubnik, and I get people that text that show and go, oh, you're in South Carolina, you're just a homer or whatever. Ryan Horvath has no reason to kiss the butt of Gamecock fans or Tiger fans. He's got no reason to kiss the butt of South Carolina or Clemson fans. In fact, Ryan Horvath goes out of his way to have a contrary opinion to me when we host shows together. Ryan Horvath last night, host of BetMGM Tonight on the BetMGM Network, a job that you do not just get. You got to be good at this stuff. Ryan Horvath said, I will take a bet right now on Lenore Sellers to be the number 1 overall draft pick next year. Speaking of, when it comes to national championship odds, the leader right now, Ohio State to repeat 6-1, Texas 6.5-1, Georgia 7-1, Oregon 8-1. So is Penn State, Alabama 11-1, Notre Dame 14-1, Clemson 16-1. Lonzo, South Carolina is 50-1. Those are odds that are identical to Tennessee and Oklahoma, and just behind Auburn and ahead of SMU, who almost won the ACC last year.
Wait, you're telling me this ain't Tennessee's year?
Apparently not. Tennessee, it is May 28th, and Tennessee doesn't know who their starting quarterback is.
Does Ohio State?
Thanks, Nico
It's
Iamaleava.
probably Julian Saying, but
It's Julian Saying.
Okay.
He's in the top 10 odds to win the Heisman. It's Julian Saying. Back after this on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate. Rob hates every team. You know, that's funny. I said on BetMGM Tonight last night, James, that for me, it is actually easier to hate every team because then I don't have to remember narratives.
That's true.
Then I don't have to remember why I hate who I hate. I get to just openly hate them. And it's much more fun to do it that way and be in certified hater mode.
I get angry when I see orange.
Be right back, guys. Give me 30 seconds. football discussion at large. Pass interference in the landscape of football. College, it's a spot foul. NFL, it's 15 yards, et cetera, et cetera. We all know the rules. But one of the hosts, Big T, a host on the Barstool Pod, had an interesting proposition for handling the PI moving forward. I am curious as to how many people will be on board with this concept. He said, and then didn't once again have his speaker set up right. One day I'll remember that. Here is the take.
The one thing we do need to get rid of is pass interference on a ball that's underthrown by 15 yards.
I would agree with that.
I agree with that as well.
And they should add and one if a receiver makes a catch while getting interfered with. Extra 5 yards.
Okay.
You like that? I think that'd be sick. Why not?
I just don't like it. I don't. And one.
Yeah, and one.
I mean, it's kind of like attempted murder. If you commit a penalty and the guy catches it, you committed the penalty. The yardage is for committing the penalty, not in case he doesn't catch it.
Fact.
Why do you get a lesser sentence if you try to kill someone and fail?
Fact. I don't know.
I mean, it's a dramatic usage of attempted homicide, but I also get it. I mean, it's we like to be dramatic in radio. It's kind of what we do. Zoe, he says, do not eliminate PI when a ball is caught. Tack it on, right? Add it on. You should get an and one. You should get the benefit of the catch and the result of the play and then a penalty, because the penalty is on the infraction, not on whether or not the guy caught the ball. If he catches the ball, excellent performance, you got interfered with and still came down with a catch. You should be rewarded for that. And said on top of that his belief is that we should eliminate pass interference on underthrown balls. Now, we would have to reach a consensus on what we define as underthrown. Does that mean like it has to be within a 5-yard halo, a 10-yard halo? Does it mean a ball that hits a defender in the back is considered underthrown? Which I actually don't hate that, but I would need to have the conversation to see if we could come up with a definition of what an underthrown ball is. Otherwise, I got no problem with it. I actually really like the concept of an and one in football, where if you were interfered with and you make the snag, the result of the play stands and we tack penalty yardage onto the end, because an offensive player should reward success in the face of a violation. I like that.
By the way, it doesn't work if they don't call it. So no matter how much you want it to be, it's just not gonna. I do have a problem with it because of the speed of the game and how fast these guys are. So they can be interfered with and stop from catching the ball because they move so fast. Just a tug could stop you from getting there where a normal person might not be able to.
I mean, well, first off, we can't officiate college or pro football based on what normal people could do, because these dudes are freaks, right? Like even low-level college football players compared to the average dude are still freaks.
Right. That's what I'm saying. The speed of the game, just a little bit of a tug can stop them from getting another 10 yards. So if you do that, they're going to start getting mugged before they I mean, it's just, I just don't like it.
I think you leave everything about the rule the same. I think you leave everything about the rule the same. I believe all pass interference, every level of the game, all pass interference should be a spot foul. Wherever the interference, if the ball isn't
By the way,
caught,
I do agree with you there.
Yeah.
I like that rule better. I like the spot foul better because it makes it more, especially if it's way down the field and it's a spot foul, it makes it mean more and may cause a defender to think twice about it.
Yeah, I mean, look, and this was a debate that I saw break out on social media yesterday where a guy said, I'll make it a spot foul, and another dude said, no, 15 yards makes more sense. And the guy said, okay, wait a minute. So what happens if wide receiver, defensive back are running stride for stride down the field, last play of the game, it's a Hail Mary to the end zone for a tutty or bust, and you know, the wide receiver gets a step on the DB. Like he's clearly going to be open, and the DB tackles him 50 yards down the field. The offense gets another shot, but they only move up 15 versus if I'm the DB and I know it's a spot foul. Wherever I grab him and tackle him at or interfere with him at is going to be the spot. Well, now all of a sudden, maybe it just makes more sense to take the risk that they don't connect or that I got safety help over the top. And so I think all PI should be a spot foul, but I really do like the idea, really do like the concept of having an and one. And I think maybe it's just 5 yards, right? So if there is a pass interference and the ball is caught by or the other way around too, right? Like if there's an offensive pass interference and it turns into a pick, wherever the defender is tackled, he should get extra yardage there too. But PI, regardless of which team catches the ball, if there is a pass interference on a team and the other team still completes the catch as either an offensive catch or an interception, if there's a PI and the other team still completes the catch, then they should be given the opportunity to finish the play, get tackled wherever they get tackled, and then let's give them a bonus 5 because you did something special there. You got interfered with and still came up with a snag. There should be a bonus attached to that. I like the concept quite a bit, if for no other reason than when a DB is attacking the ball and there is the risk of PI involved, and now you know that if you PI and that guy completes the catch anyway, you are giving them the result of the play and an additional 5 more yards. I got to think this would be a really good reason for DBs to be a little bit less aggressive in attacking the football and creating pass interferences in the first place, which leads to smoother football. I think this is a great idea.
Does the players' union have any say in what's called a penalty?
I don't think so.
Okay, because
I mean, I think that
that would be unfair treatment. You'd be treating a certain position for the most part differently than other positions.
I don't think so, because I'd say it goes the other way for DBs too, right? Like how many times have we seen a ball?
When's a lineman gonna get something extra for doing something good? When's I mean, I'm just saying.
Fat boys are people too. I don't know, man. I think as often as O linemen get away with holding calls, I think they got their cake. I think they got their slice. I think they're good. I don't know. I listened to this take last night. It came across my social media feed for the first time. I listened to this take, and the first time I listened to it, I was like, I don't know how I feel about that, right? Like, we're just going to start arbitrarily handing out fivers here and there, because I did have the reaction of, yeah, I think make it a 5-yard penalty that is stuck on to the end of your play. If you complete the catch, 5 additional onto the end. If you don't complete the catch,
even
spot
if
foul.
I was going to say, even if it's a spot foul,
no,
you're going to add that 5.
Nope. This is the reason I say and one, like in basketball. If you are fouled on the shot and the shot goes down, the shot counts and one. You get the free throw as your bonus for converting on a shot that you played through the foul and scored on. This is the football and one. We, instead of calling it and one, I'll call it and 5. This is and 5. So if you're a wide receiver and you come across the middle and the ball gets thrown to you and you go up and you are hit before the ball gets there by a linebacker, and yet you elevate and make the catch. You come down, you land, maybe you pick up 2, 3, 4 more yards after the catch. Maybe you yak daddy it for 10 or 12 more, and then you get brought down. You did something extra, and you did something special. So we're going to give you and 5. We're going to give you a reward for doing that special thing versus...
Does that also come with a smiley face to put on their uniform?
I mean, you don't have to be sarcastic about it.
Yeah, I do.
You lack the ability not to be, but you don't have to be. No, I really do think it is... I really do think it is just a matter of there should be, in this case, somewhat of a reward to players who do something exceptional and special in the game. And I think playing through a PI, coming up with the snag anyway. If you don't come up with the snag, whatever it is, what it is, it's a spot foul. Wherever the interference happened, it's your ball in that spot. If you play through the foul and you come up with a catch, just like a basketball player who knocks down a field goal while getting fouled, if you knock down the foul and catch the rock, wango bango, you're awarded something. I don't know. I like the idea. So that we're clear. It's never going to happen. But I actually really do like it. I think it's a great idea. I think we should incentivize people making special plays. Joey B on the stream said, I'm good with that, but in return, make PI reviewable. The added penalty for PI without it would make the possibility of a ref show much more likely. I agree. Make PI reviewable. And then hold referees accountable for reviewing it properly and correctly, because we tried this once and the refs are bad at their job and refuse to do it the right way, and we all suffer for it. Make it reviewable and hold the stripes accountable for doing it the right way. No, I'm not bitter. Why do you ask?
What a rubbing Rob's back kind of take. I'm just saying.
No, that's just a guy who knows ball.
Uh-huh.
That's just a guy who knows ball.
Uh-huh.
Coming up in the next segment, got a few more sports talk takes for you. And then, y'all know who Sturgill Simpson is? Probably my favorite active country music artist on the circuit right now.
Wait a minute. His first name is Sturgill?
Sturgill Simpson. He's a hell of a player.
Dang,
You'd actually,
yeah.
even country, you'd actually like the kid.
Yeah, I don't
he
know.
can play. His songs are dope. He just released a banger of a song about a subject, a topic that I love dearly and passionately. And we will share it next on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
You know, Joe, as in all things, I'm just trying to get him to make a face, which I did. So, I mean, you know. What
I've
you're
not
saying
seen
is
Sturgill
I'm about
yet.
to endure some country music played on the air.
Not only, but it's a direct challenge to Rob's hat.
Oh, boy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Rob's hat's on hiatus for at least another year. Unless we can do a Rob's hat song without Rob. We probably could. We have to do it without Purvis because he's always in jail. You will miss my sarcasm when I kill over dead. So I'm trying everything I can to do that for some reason. Voice is changing again. That's always awesome. We're going to go to the big Rim Fair this year? We say it every year. We never go.
Yes. And I say that because, and this is going to be interesting.
I mean, you can go with your group of friends, and I'll just say hi as we pass each other.
Fair, we're all friends. It's the Ren Fair Friend Fair. My buddy Jeremy, drummer in my band up in Charlotte, he and I have been working to figure out what day we're going to be able to get up there. And his wife, much like Courtney's not into the fantasy world stuff at all. That's my little nerdy environment that I live in. But Jeremy's wife, Katie, who is a doll, she's not super into it either, but she's like, I'll go people watch. And I'm like, oh, people watching
That's
probably
the place to go.
A+.
For sure.
So she said, I'll go.
And turkey legs.
Courtney was like, if she goes, I will go and hang out with her while you guys do the dorky stuff. And I was like, okay. So we're going to go this year, if only because I finally got a chance to get the wife there. And what I'm really hoping is that it's super entertaining and that by halfway through the day, she goes, I'm having fun and I don't want to.
Oh, my wife's not into it, but it's super entertaining, trust me.
Wrapping up the Rob Brown Show here on the Fan Upstate.
We can just listen to this bed, so we don't have to listen.
I like this one a lot.
So we don't have to listen to country music because I just.
Well, that's coming. I'm gonna play that for you right at the end of the segment.
Okay,
I'll give you a couple
all right.
minutes.
Okay.
I'll give you a couple minutes to hang
I don't
out
know
there.
if the prep time's enough for me, but we'll see.
I would like to say that both Lonzo and I were big Dan Campbell guys. Big Dan. How could you not be a Dan Campbell guy?
Especially after watching him try to put that beanbag chair in the truck. That was just amazing.
He's just a dude. Big Dan Campbell guy. Dan Campbell, of course, gets hired as the head coach of the Detroit Lions. And, when he broke out the bite their kneecaps slogan a couple of years ago, I was like, all right, you try hard. Relax, dude. Like, if you're going to be the guy who says stuff like bite their kneecaps, like, you gotta have the riz to carry it, and I felt like he didn't.
That was my old school, high school coaches, so I was in on that.
Yeah, most of whom I thought were dorks that were tryhards. Oh, you couldn't do anything with real football, so here you are. I had like 3 or 4 coaches that I really liked, and then a squadron of assistant coaches that were just absolute drill instructor wannabe tryhards. They're like zero inspiration, motivation, because I can tell you're not doing and saying and yelling about all this stuff because like it's really you. You're doing it because like you're trying to live up to this stereotype. But I will acknowledge that over the past 2 years, Dan Campbell has won me TF over because that locker room is bought all the way in. I still firmly believe if it wasn't for the fact that the Detroit Lions had an injury list thick enough to make a competitive team with last year, I argue the Lions at full strength could have beat the Eagles at full strength last year. That's how good I think that team was. They just got the crap beat out of them. Now, a lot of people continue to make the argument that the reason they were a MASH unit last year was because of the fact that they do play so aggressively, that they do play so violently. They got that Dan Campbell bite him in the kneecaps mentality of like, we're just going to hit you and hit you and hit you and hit you until we feel like we've hit you enough, and then we're going to hit you some more and again and again and some more. It's grown on me. I don't know if Dan Campbell will ever win a Super Bowl with Detroit because, frankly, I don't know if the Lions playing that style of football will ever make it through a season unscathed enough to win one. But I do like the attitude. I do like the mentality. I do like that old school, blue collar, bring your lunch pail, let's get dirty and play defense mentality for an NFL team. I'm not saying like that's gotta be it. I'm just saying I do like it. So we talked earlier in the show. We played you the clip from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN during the ban of the tush push conversation. And Fowler said that it was all but assumed by a lot of the NFL folks that when they got to the vote, that the ban of the tush push was going to pass. But it ended up not passing. Jeff Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, got up there, gave a very impassioned speech about, hey, just because we figured out this thing and figured out how to best adapt to and execute the thing doesn't mean you take away from the thing that's against the spirit of the game. And then they put Jason Kelce up there, who, of course, was the center for the Eagles for a very long time, was the tip of the spear that was the tush push when the tush push became a thing. And they put him up there. And he said, look, I know you're trying to paint this as a health and safety thing. I'm telling you, as a guy who literally was at the center of that play for a very long time, it's not dangerous. It's not a dangerous play. I feel safe doing that play. We built it that way, right? And they ended up overturning it. 22 teams said yes. 10 said no. They needed 24 to say yes and 8 or fewer to say no. 10 said no. There was one team in the list of teams that voted against the ban of the tush push that plays the Eagles this year. It's the Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell's Detroit Lions. The Lions said, no, we don't want to ban this play. We'll just figure out how to stop it. Dan Campbell said, when asked about the Lions' reason for not voting it, he said, quote, I'm of the school of, look, we don't run that. With Jared Goff, we're not going to. It doesn't mean we don't quarterback sneak, but we don't do that. But I am of the school of, hey, they found something, and it's for everybody else to stop it. So I'm of a hard yes of keeping it in the rule book. Philly is obviously known for this because they're the ones who've really kind of perfected it and done it and do it over and over. And I'm like, good for them. And if you got something, we got to stop it. So, like, to me, leave it in. We play them this year. We've got to find a way to stop it. And I like that. End quote. Yes. Yes. Give me more Dan Campbell. And I would even go so far as to say that while obviously there are coaches who take it too far, I like this mentality. And I like this mentality. I would like to see this mentality in the youth game a little bit more, in the young game, the middle schoolers, the high schoolers, the college guys a little bit more. And I would like to see this mentality a little bit more because I think what you would end up with is less of a game where every time a wide receiver comes up not making a catch, they don't get up and start throwing their hands around, throwing their arms around like somebody just punched their dog. What I would like to see is when a DB gets beat, cooked down the sideline, gives up a big play, he doesn't turn around and start jawing at every one of the other guys on the field like, oh, that was your job. You messed it up. It is my fault. This is much like I gave the old butt slap and good game to the SEC coaches earlier for promoting to Greg Sankey the 5+11 format, where the 5 college football conference champions go and 11 at-large spots. I like a measure of accountability. I like a measure of, it's on us. We got to do it. We got to get it done. We got to make this work. I like that. And I think if we could instill that in more football players, we'd be better off for it. I don't mean to be old man screams at cloud here, but I think this is a really good opportunity to utilize sport. We always talk about Little League sports is for 2 reasons. Number 1, have fun playing the game. Number 2, to teach life lessons in ways that only sports can teach it. Being a good teammate, accountability, winning with grace, losing with dignity, et cetera, et cetera. That Dan Campbell mentality of we play them, and just because they kick ass at this thing doesn't mean we should just take it away from them. We just got to figure out how to stop it. I like that. I like that a lot. Well done, Dan Campbell. It is going to be hard for me not to openly root for the Detroit Lions this year. Like, that's just a likable team. It's a likable quarterback who got cast off, likable set of skill guys, likable head coach. That is a team that is going to be really easy for me to pull for next year.
You might want to find another team to pull for.
Nah.
So
that's how much I like them.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, other than your team that you normally pull for.
Oh, no, I'm not going to pull for my team. My team sucks.
Okay, all right.
I'm not going to waste my time. All right, before we get to what the X is going on, ladies and gentlemen, Sturgill Simpson is a wonderful country music artist. In fact, I say that he is in the vein of the old school artist, singer-songwriter style, phenomenal guitar player, and his lyrics, his music is more than just skin deep. He is a good artist. He doesn't just say, give me the formula to churn out a bunch of pop radio singles. He actually has good stuff, and he cares about his fans. Joey B was at a show in Asheville, said he played 3.5 hours, no set breaks in Asheville a few days ago. I'm not shocked by that. Sturgill Simpson.
By the way, I don't know if that's caring for your fans because you're not giving them time to go to the restroom either. I'm just saying.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, okay.
As somebody who regularly, when I was young, cool in a band, we played 4-hour shows, no breaks. Like, we all had one song somewhere in the middle where somebody would play your instrument so you could go pee, but, like, no breaks. We just rolled straight through because people don't want to stop partying. Anyway, Sturgill Simpson issuing a direct challenge to Lonzo's fake but totally not fake band, Rob's Hat. See, Lonzo a number of years ago came up with the concept that country music is easy. I disagree with him. Not the point. one of the songs that he came up with on the fly was a song called the Waffle House Serenade, a beautiful love song about the Wahoo. Sturgill Simpson was on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert the other day and issued a direct challenge to Lonzo and Rob's hat. A little ode to the Wahoo. No shoes, no shirts, no knuckleheads. A love song to America's finest dining establishment, the Wahoo, from Sturgill Simpson. And I have to say,
should have copyrighted that idea is what I should have done. But, that's okay.
Listen, there are songs in the Waffle House jukebox that are love songs about Waffle House. You ain't even close to the first guy to come up with the idea for a love song about a Wahoo.
Yeah, it was stolen.
There are songs in the Waffle House jukebox about wanting to make love to a Waffle House waitress in the Waffle House. That's a love song.
I thought you were going to say the waffle. Wanted to make love to the waffle, and that would have been.
They're pretty good waffles.
There's some weird people. Okay, whatever you're into.
Pretty good waffles.
All right, dude.
And now the Rob Brown Show presents Twitter.
Hey, some people like to get food involved in their private life. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Okay, try not to get that freakiness in your head because you probably won't be able to get it out. This has nothing to do with that, but the first thing that's Xing is where's the beef?
Where's the beef? What a beautifully coincidental opening topic here for What the X. The old famous Wendy's old lady, where's the beef commercial, which is, I got to assume, like 50 years old at this point. I have no idea why it's trending. I'm going to assume that it is the anniversary of the commercial and people are just enjoying that old lady going, where's the beef?
All right.
Which was fantastic.
It's one of two things. It's either... excuse me, a bunch of those show that you're a kid of the 80s things that causes something to trend, and the other one is, I believe it was in Pennsylvania, a bunch of beef was stolen.
Where's the beef?
Yes. And
I mean, that's just rude.
I mean, when I say a bunch, I mean like a truckload of beef was stolen.
How many hamburgers you going to eat, my dude? I mean, they don't stay good forever.
Hey, buddy, check this out. Got your burgers right over here. Right? You want some? I got some cheese on this side. Got your condiments.
That means we have a real life hamburglar now.
We do, which is amazing. All right, the next thing that's Xing is Jeremiah Smith.
Jeremiah Smith is Xing because Jeremiah Smith, along with Ryan Williams of Alabama, are the two players that will grace the cover of the NCAA 2026 EA Sports video game. The two cover athletes will be on the basic game. There will be a luxury edition game that will also have other big-time name. Reggie Bush is going to be on the cover. Good job on him making some NIL money. I hope Reggie's doing okay. But those two young men will be the cover athletes. Last year, they went with 50 players on the cover, all facing it, which I thought, honestly, was a dope cover for that box. This year, going back to the classics, two guys in front of their logos, and I'm in. I'm back, baby.
All right, the next thing that's Xing is Switch 2.
Switch 2. I do not know why it is Xing. I know that pre-orders for the Switch 2 were opened up a while back, but then they went on pause because we didn't know how Donald Trump's tariffs were going to affect the ability to import the game, what the pricing change was going to be, et cetera, et cetera. Those tariffs, I believe at least parts of them, have been paused again for another 90 days.
So that's not what it is. A couple people have already got their Switch 2, but they can't play it until launch date because there's a launch date update. So they have it in hand, but they cannot play it until they download the upgrade on the launch date. That's kind of messed up.
That is kind of messed up. I am also going to say there is one thing, and I've been a Nintendo guy since I had my first Nintendo NES back in the day. Can I tell you one thing that's driving me crazy? When you buy a Switch 2 new, you are no longer buying a Switch 2. You are buying a license to use and operate a Switch 2. That Switch 2 still belongs to Nintendo, and they have already said that if you make any modifications to that hardware, they reserve the right to brick it from a distance remotely, meaning you can't use it anymore at all. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't own anything anymore.
We don't. And finally, the last thing that's Xing, unfortunately, is Rick Derringer.
Did Rick Derringer die?
He did. He died at 77. One of his most famous songs was Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, and I wanted a chance to say Hoochie Coo. And the other thing is, he's a guy, was a real American. That was him.
He was indeed a real American. Fight for the rights of every man. I believe, if I recall correctly, and I heard this somewhere, I believe he was also part of the band when Hang On Sloopy dropped. So technically Derringer gets credit for Hang On Sloopy as well.
I think I read that earlier.
So there you go. R.I.P. Rick Derringer. That obviously means we all, as soon as this show's over, just go to Spotify and blast the theme song of that one wrestler nobody likes anymore, right?
Or Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo.
Or just go into your office today and scream in R.I.P. of Rick Derringer. Just open the office door and scream Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo.
Which around here would not be unusual.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Hey, speaking of fair, that's it for us. Thank you for being here. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you didn't, you got bad taste in radio. Come back tomorrow. We'll try again and do a better job. Lulu Kesson talking Gamecocks. Rashad Beard talking Panthers. Hayden Ass Mario talking NBA. Lonzo talking Fight Club and more. All tomorrow on The Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Later. What, did these TVs move?
All I know is you hit the monitor.
I know. I've hit them like 3 times in the last 4 seconds.
So you don't think maybe it's your fault?
No, I've moved this mic around all the time. That's the first time I've hit it. I think the TV's moved.
I suppose it's a possibility, but I don't think they did.
Up and down? Because I got to tell you, if that pivots up and down, I might put one of those in my house. For my monitors.
Probably, you probably have to weld to do it. I don't know.
No, it's screwed on a bracket. I'd have to put it on a stud and make sure I don't miss.
Put it on a stud.
Guys, watch 30 years of ACC officiating. Giving them the business. I'm gonna set my soundboard up today. That's my today project. Social media video and get my soundboard back. All right, dudes and dudettes, thanks for being here. You're all amazing people. We appreciate you. Tell your friends about us. Share the show on social. We're trying to get rich and famous and retired as quickly as possible. We would very much like to do that.
One of us sooner than another, probably. So
no, I'd love to retire tomorrow. I just can't afford it. I'd like to do this for fun, not because I have to pay bills.
Yeah, but then you'd be getting up this early for fun.
No, I'd immediately go back to 12 to 3.
Okay.
Move me back to lunchtime. Okay, bye.